Lord of Mysteries. Survival from the Secret Doll Chapter 181 to 190. According to information from the Intis Eternal Blazing Sun Church and the Artisan Church, Amon has become quite active over there. Archbishop Chanis slowly explained, Amon's existence is a persistent affliction for the clergy of the Eternal Blazing Sun Church. Their worshipped deity, like the Lord of the Storms Church, does not want Amon to gain more power and authority. When it comes to Sequence 0, those who least want Amon to become a god and most want him to suffer are undoubtedly the former three angel kings: Wind, Wisdom, and White. During their time as angel kings, they betrayed the ancient sun god in a plot orchestrated by the goddess of the night to kill him, devouring his corpse and achieving Sequence 0 true godhood. With such a dark history, they naturally don't want the ancient sun god's child to ascend to godhood and help the ancient sun god return. After all, they, the true gods who have lived for countless years, know exactly what that symbolizes. Nicholas Flamel, who also understood this ancient history, nodded in agreement, understanding the deeper meaning implied by Archbishop Chanis. The goddess of the night and the deity of the omniscient and almighty five pathways are allies. Whether facing Amon or Adam, they wouldn't mind giving them a kick to weaken them. Attaching Amon's honorific name to Tang's body allows him to better influence the thief pathway adjacent to the seer pathway through mystical connections. The high-ranking members of the three pathways of the mysteries all have connections to Tang. Some exist as sealed artifacts, some have been made into secret puppets, and some have been locked in the little black room by the goddess, still howling there. In the thief pathway next door, the two Sequence 1 angels are Amon and Pales Zoroaster. The uniqueness and the remaining Sequence 1 extraordinary characteristic are also in Tang's hands. Even if Amon wants to use the influence of the higher sequence over the lower sequence to do something, even if he was once the king of angels, it will be difficult for him to bypass Tang and Pales's blockade of two Sequence 1s plus the uniqueness in this situation. The Abraham family, gathered in the apprentice pathway, now has a deeper cooperative relationship with Tang. The king of angels of the apprentice pathway has also been exiled by the Lord of Storms and the goddess of the night. Most of the high-ranking members exist as sealed artifacts, sealed deep within the Abraham family. Thinking about it this way, the high-sequence extraordinary beings of the three pathways of the mysteries seem to be within Tang's sphere of influence. The goddess is betting on him. It seems that he is indeed one of the backup plans for the Lord of the Mysteries. Okay, I understand. Nicholas Flamel smiled and stood up, his body slowly disappearing. I will try my best to control the spread of these stories. Well, at least. How could a thief skilled at playing with words leave loopholes in his language? Before leaving, he pinched the monocle he was wearing in his right eye socket and smiled at Archbishop Chanis, completely adopting Amon's manner. You already know my honorific name, so I won't pretend anymore. Me, Amon, pay up. Archbishop Chanis. After killing an extraordinary creature equivalent to Sequence 4, Tang took out the glass bottle. Before the ritual effect of killing the extraordinary creature ended, he drank the potion contained in the glass bottle. This is a Sequence 4 potion. The Secret Order Master arranged a drama, killed a demigod-level extraordinary creature, and then drank it to advance to a trick master. The cold potion poured into his mouth, reacting with his spiritual body. The power of the potion began to penetrate his body, transforming his spiritual body and gaining divinity. The Sequence 4 trick master's ritual gradually distorted and fragmented Tang's thinking. It seemed that his consciousness was also cut into countless pieces, forming anchor points, forming thin black lines, seemingly wanting to connect these countless consciousnesses together, turning his body into transparent worms one after another. The trick master is a sequence at the same level that is more prone to mental breakdown and fragmentation than other pathways. Even if the ritual effect is sufficient and there is no problem with the potion, there is still a high probability of uncontrolled and crazy symptoms, which may lead to the failure of the promotion, or even the death of the person who took the potion. During the ritual, Tang's expression gradually changed from peace and tranquility to pain. His body began to disintegrate, and the power of the potion penetrated from his body. Those things did not seem to be completely digested by the body. The crazy mental influence interrupted this promotion ritual that opened the door to demigodhood midway, and eventually slid into an irreversible abyss. He showed signs of being out of control, and these signs continued to worsen. Even his spiritual body itself was contaminated and eroded by the potion. The Secret Order's demigod, who was calmly observing this direct descendant of the god of death in the shadows, secretly thought something was wrong. His figure suddenly disappeared, rapidly approaching Tang Eggers, who was on the verge of losing control. Calm down. Calm down. Master your spiritual body. Don't let the residual spirit inside the potion completely destroy your sanity. The Undying One took out a potion from his pocket, trying to save this Secret Order master who was already on the verge of losing control. But he was obviously one step late. He saw that the figure covered in countless transparent spirit worms swelled rapidly. Flesh and blood quickly wrapped the other person's head. That somewhat pale face showed a ferocious expression due to pain and madness. His protruding eyes suddenly looked at this suddenly appearing demigod. The two secret puppets that assisted the Secret Order master in hunting demigod-level extraordinary creatures also underwent bizarre distortions. Because the main body showed signs of losing control and could no longer be saved, through mystical connections, even the secret puppets began to lose control, manipulated by the monster's spiritual body threads, becoming crazy and irrational. This is an out-of-control, crazy demigod. The failure of the promotion ritual, without corresponding means of salvation, caused this Secret Order master's spirituality to merge with the potion, turning into an indescribable monster. Ah! The monster shouted an angry roar that humans could not understand. The Secret Order's demigod felt his body begin to become sluggish. He understood that this was because his spiritual body threads had been grabbed. A great battle broke out once again. When this Secret Order's demigod killed the direct descendant of the god of death who had become a monster, he himself became very embarrassed. He waited for a moment, reached into the huge pile of corpses where the huge sarcoma and the two secret puppets were combined, and held a seemingly transparent eyeball in his hand. This is the Sequence 4 Trick Master Potion, combined with a certain part of the extraordinary being after death, forming a sealed artifact with considerable negative effects. Tang Eggers Ramde is confirmed dead. We must tell the High Priest about this. He muttered in a low voice to the pile of monsters where it was impossible to judge which flesh and blood corresponded to which part of the body. This Secret Order's demigod powerhouse erased the traces of the battle one by one, and then interfered with divination and divination through mystical means before entering the spirit world and leaving in a hurry. But he didn't notice that behind him, eyes had appeared one after another without him knowing when. Those eyes seemed to look at each other, engaging in silent communication. Does he believe it? He should believe it. He has no choice but to believe it. If he doesn't believe it, then we'll turn him into a marionette. Turn him into a marionette. Turn him into a marionette. The eyes closed one by one, re-entering the higher dimensional world, concealing their forms. Only the wreckage of battle remained here, the traces of pollution unnoticed. The disappearance of Baron Ramses and his second son caused Mrs. Boyanka, who had been waiting for her husband and child for a long time without their return, to inform the local church and contact relatives far away in Backland, requesting their assistance. The official Beyonders in Tingen naturally launched an investigation into this matter, but the result was fruitless. Supernatural powers have interfered with the results of divination and prophecy. I'm sorry, madam, but your husband and second son, I'm afraid. Naturally, the family behind Mrs. Boyanka of Backland could not easily accept this conclusion. They enlisted the help of a prominent figure in Backland, a demigod belonging to the royal family, to come to Tingen to investigate the situation. However, the results were basically consistent with the findings of the church's Beyonders. In this era, not finding the body itself meant death. Mrs. Boyanka stood in the cold and cramped castle, the black veil obscuring her expression from onlookers. However, others could clearly feel the grief emanating from the lady's heart. Owen, who had rushed back from Saga Castle in the Hornak Highlands, quickly supported his mother, whispering something to her. Mrs. Boyanka's body seemed to sway slightly, and Owen immediately closed his mouth. This Sequence 4 Undying, after several years of accumulation, had become increasingly experienced, mature, and steady. Looking at the others in the castle, he began to instruct the servants here to set up a mourning hall and place some of his father and brother's belongings in the coffin. In the funeral customs of the Awa County region, people who cannot be found dead cannot go to the divine kingdom of the corresponding god after death to receive the baptism of angels, which also means that they cannot come to their relatives' side through dreams to say a final farewell. When it is determined that someone in the family has died, but the body cannot be brought back, other members of the family will put some of the deceased's belongings into the coffin to serve as the deceased's remains, so that those who have died can follow their belongings back to their relatives' side, so that they can say a final farewell to their relatives before going to the kingdom of the gods. Owen methodically made all these arrangements. The official Beyonders and members of the royal family from Backland, seeing that there were not many clues, had no choice but to give up. In this world, people die every minute and every second, and among those who die every minute and every second, many die inexplicably, without even leaving a body. For Beyonders who are old enough, this is too common. Mrs. Boyanka's brother, Aeneas Lansdowne, was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s, with short, close-cropped black hair and a pair of sharp blue eyes like a hawk, possessing the temperament of someone who had long been in a high position. He was one of the powerful figures in Backland, a supporter of the royal faction, and was therefore able to enlist the help of a royal demigod to investigate the Ramses family's problem. It was just that the result was regrettable. He patted Owen on the shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Your father was the bravest knight I have ever seen. Although I don't understand why he disappeared, I have to admit that he was the bravest person I have ever met." Baron Ramses' knighthood originated from the battles of the Loen kingdom, and those who were selected from them and granted titles by His Majesty the King were all among the best. Owen twitched the corner of his mouth. Although he knew his mother's relatives, he was not actually familiar with them. Aeneas Lansdowne's tone suddenly softened, and he said to his sister's eldest son, "Your mother has always been a stubborn but also very strong person. I think she will understand. I heard Lundell mention you. If you want to come to Backland, tell me and I will make it happen. You and your mother, perhaps you can both come to Backland next. It has become too unsafe here." Lundell was one of the managers of Saga Castle in the Hornack Highlands. Owen had dealt with him a few times, but he had indeed not heard that the other party had any relationship with the Lansdowne family of Backland. And no one was sure why Baron Ramses and his second son had disappeared. The official Beyonders and the Lansdowne family decided to send people to protect this place, guarding against possible new accidents, but this could not really eliminate the danger. Aeneas Lansdowne's meaning was very clear, which was to first let Mrs. Boyanka return to the family. Owen thought for a moment and then nodded slowly, "I'll think about it. Be solid, you can reach the height you want. Take good care of her. I think she needs your company more now." After Aeneas Lansdowne finished speaking, he walked past Owen and went outside. He had many things to be busy with. Borrowing the power of the supernatural to rush here from Backland and staying for a day was already the limit for this powerful figure. Now he had to return to Backland. After Aeneas Lansdowne left, Owen helped Mrs. Boyanka into his father's study. Although there were still many things left, he did not personally handle them. The castle's butler was an experienced assistant manager who would arrange these things. Tang. After entering the study, the haggardness that Mrs. Boyanka had faked suddenly disappeared. She straightened her body, walked to the desk, and her appearance began to change. Countless fleshy buds appeared on her face, giving people a feeling of evil and strangeness at first glance. Owen stood at the door of the study, watching the Mrs. Boyanka, whose appearance had completely changed. Tang Ramses, who should have died, emerged from behind the desk, sat on the desk, and blinked. "What do you want me for? Aren't you going to explain?" Owen asked with a bit of gnashing teeth. God knows what kind of mood he was in when he heard from the manager of Saga Castle that his father and brother were missing and something had happened at home. "Isn't Angie here? My marionette exists, so naturally I won't have any problems." Tang stood up, patted the shoulder of the faceless woman beside her, and said to Owen, "Good acting, just like the real thing." Owen. "Damn it, I want to hit someone." Seeing his old brother getting anxious, Tang then concealed the upward curve of his lips, careful not to show an expression of gloating that would invite a beating. Actually, I've always felt I had a bit of a hunter's talent. I've always thought my ability to provoke and exploit loopholes was exceptionally good. Sometimes, watching others squirm really does improve one's mood. Ah, is this the so-called law of conservation of smiles? Smiles don't disappear. They only transfer. Host, the latter is okay, but if you were a hunter, I really can't imagine that scene. The system muttered to itself. The cyber brain had already simulated the scene of its host, sequence 5, advancing to sequence 4, accidentally drinking a bottle of a witch's potion because his brain short-circuited, and then, ah ha ha ha. Hee hee, the host turning into a woman doesn't seem unacceptable either. Tang. What kind of dirty things is this stupid system thinking about? Tang ignored the strange cyber garbage his system was thinking about and sat back in his chair. Owen also pulled up a chair and sat down. Madame Boyanka stood beside them, eyes lowered, silent, quietly pouring water for the two of them. What are your plans next? Are you going to Backland or back to Saga Fortress? Tang picked up the cup and took a light sip. More importantly, how is mother? Owen's hair was cut very short, and his skin was tanned from years of exposure to the sun and wind. He had a calm demeanor and was efficient in his work. Compared to the somewhat impetuous young man from a few years ago, he had really changed a lot. Overall, he was tough and sturdy, suitable to be used as a meat shield at some point. She's doing fine. She seems to be in good spirits, attending mysticism courses every day, basking in the sun, and tending to flowers. It doesn't seem much different from usual, Tang said. Of course, Madame Boyanka only smiled at Tang's arrangement for himself to die this time, without objecting. I asked before, and mother doesn't feel tired of her current life, nor does she plan to leave Tingnan at this time. She wants to maintain the status quo, so she should stay this way for the short term. Okay, Owen said, and after a moment of contemplation, he added, the people from the Aurora Order have been contacting me quite frequently recently. Members of the Aurora Order had some contact with Owen and Tang in the past 5 years. Although they believed they were well disguised, most of those who contacted the two were actually marionettes. The marionettes sent into the Aurora Order didn't dare to go too far. After all, marionettes are dead people, and they would exhibit certain abnormalities in front of high-ranking beings in the domain of death. Of course, neither the marionettization nor the bionic marionette module belonged to the lower levels of mystical extraordinary powers. The Death Consul would have about the same chance of discerning that a disguised person in front of him was a marionette as he would have of discovering a parasite in a neighbor's body. Therefore, as long as they didn't interfere with the core members of the Aurora Order, they could create as many marionettes as they wanted among the lower-level extraordinary individuals. Anyway, those big shots wouldn't care. Judging from the intentions of the higher-ups in the Aurora Order, they seem to want me to go to Backland and seize real power. The southern continent has been quite chaotic in recent years. Does the Aurora Order still have the leisure to extend its reach? Tang shrugged, unsurprised. It seems they aren't chaotic enough. Well, someday, he'd have Cotter poke and prod here and there to completely provoke the conflict between the Indulgence School of the Rose School and the Aurora Order, and let them fight it out. Neither of these factions were good. A fight would reveal whether the Aurora Order, backed by the descendants of the Death God and the Death God's lingering influence, was stronger, or the Indulgence School of the Rose School, influenced by the Mother Tree of Desire, was stronger. So, what are your thoughts? I'm already a colonel. The next step is general. Tang, you said before that this would make it quite easy to enter the royal family's site. Owen paused for a moment, looked at Tang. What do you think? It depends on what you want, Tang shrugged. Although the Augustus family is a bit troublesome, it's not impossible to hide it from them. The only problem is you. The Sleepless and the Night are adjacent extraordinary pathways to the warrior pathway. In Loen, high-sequence Undying are bound to receive widespread attention, especially from the Church of Evernight and the Loen royal family. Most wild extraordinary individuals who advance to demigod unnaturally have some force behind them. So, if you plan to go to Backland, then the only thing you need to do is hide yourself well. But if you can't hide yourself well... Owen fell silent. Tang, however, put down his cup, took out a monocle carved from crystal from his pocket, and slowly put it on his right eye socket. He pinched the monocle, gave his brother a smile, and said in a gentle tone, with a leisurely attitude, "Don't worry. If you think it's worth the risk, I think you don't need to worry about me and mother anymore. Go do what you want to do." After all, to some extent, he was now a big shot in the mystical world. If things really went south, he could just pull Amon in to take the blame. When the time came, you just put on your monocle. If he doesn't ask, you don't say anything. If he asks, you act surprised. After all, you were targeted by Amon, weren't you? You advanced to Undying. You didn't do it on purpose. It's all Amon's fault. As for why Amon, of the seer pathway, would consume the demigod extraordinary characteristics of the death pathway. Who knows? Maybe Amon was bored. The Loen royal family couldn't possibly arrest Amon, hang him up, and beat him while asking, "Why did you eat the Undying's extraordinary characteristics?" Inside Miskatonic University, the graduation ceremony had ended, and all the graduates began to pack their luggage, taking with them the various knowledge they had learned here, preparing to leave. A few years was enough time for children to grow into young men and women, and for young men and women to become more mature and steady. This was their place of redemption, the miracle in their hearts. "Congratulations, you have graduated," Tang Eggers Ramde, the president of Miskatonic University, said to the countless marionettes and people below in the auditorium. The marionettes still smiled happily, while those who had been taken in showed dazedness, tears, determination, and reluctance. Even without much literary description of the lives they had lived in the past few years, the rich campus life, the enthusiastic alumni, and the humorous professors were all part of their memories. Those who had gained extraordinary power and entered the extraordinary realm naturally understood one thing even more. Their memories of what had happened in the past few years would be blurred, leaving only the recognition of the concept of Miskatonic University. This was the explanation that Headmaster gave them when they stepped into the extraordinary realm and entered the inner campus. At this moment of departure, many of their memories would be left here. But the knowledge learned here, the vague memories of this place, will always be an indelible part of their memories. This place itself is a miracle. Whether they were 11 or 12-year-old boys and girls, or young people who had already come of age and entered the extraordinary realm, after packing their luggage, they all looked towards this place under the night, which still shone so brightly, and seemed to be a haven for their lives in the past few years. Goodbye. Goodbye. The gate of Miskatonic University slowly closed, and memories and many concepts were involuntarily stolen away as the angel of the seer pathway reached out. They would forget most of their memories in this campus, retaining only the obsession to promote this university. Their whole lives would be devoted to this. This was a very reasonable equivalent exchange. Aileen, who was already a Sequence 8 clown, took a deep look behind her. The originally open gate had long disappeared. They returned to the familiar but unfamiliar street, and their companions who had been with them day and night were also teleported to their respective chosen places. And the place she chose was Tingen. It was the place where she would promote Miskatonic University, this sweet and illusory dream. Carrying her suitcase, Aileen gently exhaled, her eyes then becoming firm. The ritual officially begins. The long years always made people feel bored. After Tang watched the group of ordinary people and beyonders, who were far from being experienced, leave the school gate, he stretched out his left hand, and the ring of the master on his little finger flickered with a faint light. On the never-ending stage, countless huge curtains began to overlap, sealing this place. He disconnected the spiritual threads connecting himself to all his marionettes, allowing the bionic marionette module to enter automatic operation mode, and letting the system, the core of the theater, and War Bishop Brooks independently judge the external situation and make their own judgments. If possible, he would be in the position of an observer, no longer manipulating marionettes, giving orders, or leaving his mark in the historical fog by appearing in the real world. After those outsiders left, the order here did not change. The students still attended classes obediently, and the professors still studied all kinds of things. Everything seemed to be the same as before, still lively and extraordinary. Tang took out a pocket watch and looked at the time on it. Through the method of crushing extraordinary characteristics and re-aggregating them through the system, Now this sequence 1 extraordinary characteristic of the seer pathway only had a pure sequence 1 extraordinary characteristic and some kind of power imposed by him in the future. The remaining sequence 2 to 9 extraordinary characteristics would cultivate a sequence 2 fate siphon marionette in the next 300 years. The marionette located in Tingnan City, Nicola Flamel, who had once only borrowed the power of the Ring of the Master, of the never-ending theater to display the power of an angel, was now a true deceit mentor. Next, he would ascend to the angel level. When he truly became the time worm, he would also inherit the uniqueness that once belonged to Aemon, becoming the angel king of the seer pathway, 1+1. Pales had no objection to this. Then Olsen pointed to himself, looking confused. Tang looked at his good friend, thought for a while, rummaged in his pocket, and took out a black curtain that was stained with some starlight, but its state was condensed, like a solidified night. This was a part torn from the never-ending theater. Wearing it was also equivalent to being protected by the system, the night, and the miracle authority. It could also be unaffected by the full moon's whispers. Go play. Tang waved his hand. Olsen. My potion is almost digested. There is a sequence 3 wanderer potion in the family. I plan to next. Wait. Tang looked at Olsen with an expression of, silly boy, what nonsense are you talking about? You, wanderer? Advancement? Are you planning to die? But, Olsen choked, weakly saying, after the advancement is completed, even if the power of the whispers is strengthened. This is not a problem of whispers. Didn't a lawmaster in your family suddenly die after returning from a long trip? Absolutely. Absolutely do not carry out the sequence 3 advancement ritual without any protection. To be precise, all rituals involving the starry sky cannot be carried out without strong protection. Seeing that Tang was about to leave, Olsen was silent. Olsen was frantic. Olsen was preparing to shake Tang's shoulders frantically, preparing to learn the other party's twisted crawling, and force the other party to explain what riddles he had just said. Tang flashed, perfectly dodging his friend's mad grabbing. Let's talk after I complete the ritual. I have a way for the sequence 3 and sequence 2 rituals. Well, after he became a miracle master, perhaps he could use Euclidean space to smuggle to the astral world to see what the outside world was like. As long as he stayed in the higher dimensional space, wearing mosaic glasses, theoretically only the higher dimensional overseer, whose authority and Euclidean space overlapped, could catch him. And between preparing for an outer god, and being beaten by a bunch of outer gods when going out, how could the former choice not be more cost-effective? If you go up now, you can only be a delicious little cake for those things in the starry sky. Tang couldn't stand his friend using the extraordinary abilities of the Arcanist to deal with him, so he could only explain it again. Mr. Door was probably gone like this. Olsen, don't follow in the footsteps of your ancestors. But Olsen was even more confused. He naturally knew the danger of the starry sky. The notes in the family all wrote about the danger of the starry sky. This was greater than the danger in the spirit world. No, greater than the danger in the spirit world. But, delicious little cake? What a strange metaphor. Just treat it as a term of endearment. You can say it's a snack that comes to your door, a little cutie that comes to your mouth. The more Olsen listened, the more wrong it felt, but before he could ask anything, Tang ran away. Olsen reached out. Charlatan, come back and finish what you were saying before you leave. Alright, if there's nothing else, I'll go into seclusion first. The theater sealed the internal and external environment, stopping the interaction between this place and the historical fog and fate. Being in this space, Tang could naturally huddle for 300 years, waiting for the ritual to complete naturally. Next, it was a long period of sleep. The winter in Backland was even colder than in Tingnan. The winter here was extremely cold. Pedestrians hurried along the streets, their exhaled breath forming white mist, as if able to freeze all the air into thick layers of ice. This city, known as the City of All Nations, was shrouded in a gray haze. Even sunlight seemed unable to penetrate the gloom. Sleet fell, constantly dropping snowflakes that weren't particularly clean. The uneven cobblestone streets reflected the dim light of the sky, and the shops on both sides had their doors tightly closed, the cold glass reflecting the shadows of passers-by. In this weather, there weren't many pedestrians on the streets. Even the horses were unwilling to walk in the biting wind. Everything was frozen, giving off a sense of lifelessness. It was unknown how many homeless people hiding in the corners would die because of this. With the bad weather, the price of food would also rise. In the coming spring, it was unclear how many people would die in this cold winter. In the most luxurious area of the entire city, Aeneas Lansdowne smoked a cigarette, watching the howling, biting cold wind outside the window. Snow had piled up thickly in the courtyard. The sky continued to drop more snowflakes, symbolizing purity and coldness. The fireplace in the room was lit, but it couldn't dispel the helplessness and slight confusion in his heart. Time had left indelible marks on the Earl's temples. Already over 70 years old, a considerable age for ordinary people in this era, His Excellency the Earl's face inevitably revealed an undisguisable weariness. He silently extinguished the cigarette in his hand. Compared to the past, the Earl, who once held real power and was now deeply valued by the Loen royal family, no longer had the upright spine he once possessed. The sharp aura on his body had also diminished a lot. He looked like an unremarkable old man, just an old fellow with one foot in the grave. The closer one gets to death, the more one fears it. But this backland powerholder, who had seen many births and deaths, was no stranger to death, or rather, he was already prepared to face it. He had also witnessed the deaths of many people, and now, he was about to witness a funeral that wasn't unfamiliar. Many people came to the residence of this powerful Earl to offer condolences, and in this empty mansion belonging to the Earl, the somber atmosphere seemed to echo the wind and snow outside, making people shiver with cold. Aeneas Lansdowne came out just in time to see someone rushing over. The person was in his 40s, with a tall and straight figure and a firm face. There were scars on his face left by many events, but they weren't frightening. They only made those who saw him understand that he was a seasoned general. Now, this general, a powerful figure in the kingdom of Loen, was struck by sudden, devastating news from his family, causing him to rush back here without even having time to tidy up his military uniform, appearing both dazed and somewhat at a loss. The sudden bad news had shaken the mind of this general with iron-blooded methods, revealing some of his true inner emotions. "You're back. Go see her," Aeneas Lansdowne said, his voice old and hoarse, with a hint of imperceptible pity, but he still pretended to be calm. "The priests are doing the final preparations for her. Boyanka passed away peacefully. She will go to the goddess's kingdom, where she will find eternal peace, praise the goddess." The person twitched the corner of his mouth and didn't say anything. He just silently followed the servant's lead to the room where the body was laid. The priest belonging to the Church of the Night had already styled the hair of the Earl's sister, a devout follower of the goddess. After seeing the person arrive, she nodded to the general and left the room, leaving the mother and son with enough time to be alone. She didn't die in pain. Her body was always healthy. Death was only because she reached the limit of an ordinary person's lifespan. Tang's figure emerged from the corner of the room. Compared to Owen, he hadn't undergone any physical changes due to the passage of time, still looking like a young man. But in the eyes of this faceless magician, there were also some emotions similar to those of the visitor. Walking to Owen's side, Tang stopped and looked at the peaceful, closed-eyed face, which had become old but still gentle due to age, and he and Owen fell silent together. Why didn't she want to continue living? As a high-ranking being of the death pathway who held the authority over the domain of death, Owen could naturally sense the natural lifespan limit of others. Long ago, Madame Boyanka's physical condition had begun to decline. Even without illness or disaster, the lifespan limit of ordinary people was a threshold that was almost impossible to break. But Tang possessed the Sequence 1 sealed artifact of the seer pathway and was a high-ranking being who controlled the uniqueness. Stealing time from others and giving it to Madame Boyanka to extend her lifespan was not a difficult thing to do. Everything is possible in the world of the extraordinary. Even ordinary people who have not become beyonders, if this ordinary person wishes it, and the high-ranking being who holds the authority in this regard is willing to help, then he can also live for a very long time. "Don't you know, Owen?" Tang reached out and touched his mother's cheek, which was cold and piercing, no longer having the warmth of the past. He said very calmly, "Mother has always been an ordinary person, and she never wanted to become a Beyonder. Therefore, she naturally wouldn't use extraordinary power to obtain a life that doesn't belong to her. My thoughts are the same as yours. I also hope she can live, but in the end, it is we who want to continue living, who want to continue walking down this extraordinary path, not her. Letting Mother accompany us forever on this journey is really selfish. Aging and death, even for demigods and angels, are the ultimate fate they must face if they do not respond to the power to increase their lifespan." Madame Boyanka's health had been very good since returning to Backland. She hadn't even had the most common cold. To leave at this age was the limit of her life, and it was also her clearly expressed endpoint. "Where's father?" Owen didn't say anything more, but turned his head to look at his younger brother. "He said his final farewell to Mother and has already left. He is about to enter the next stage of memory loss and is now preparing for it. Before Mother was about to reach the end of her life, her only wish was to see father." Tang told father about this, and the descendant of the god of death, the undying one from ancient times, appeared here. However, one was already old, while the other was still young. "It's truly unimaginable." Madame Boyanka looked like she was smiling at that time, gazing kindly at her husband. Her eyes were filled with joy, and she didn't show any inferiority or timidity towards her husband because of her aging and deteriorating body. "The extraordinary world really has many interesting little secrets, Wilbert." Wilbert was Azik Eggers' name when he was in the identity of Baron Ramde. The two of them met and fell in love at that time, and to this day, they are still a symbol of love in the eyes of many. "Young you always reminds me of many beautiful memories." Madame Boyanka talked with her husband, and Azik reached out and held his wife's hand, covered with age spots and wrinkles. "Yes, that was my best memory. I really hope to always." Madame Boyanka didn't continue what she hoped to always do, but Tang knew that his mother was happy. She had a smooth life, her husband was a loyal and powerful knight, and her two children. One grew up to be a powerful figure in Backland, and the other was also a big figure in the mystical world. She was satisfied and calmly welcomed the arrival of death. Death is not the end of everything. She will always live in the hearts of those who love her and are loved by her. Grief and sorrow were inevitable. Tang drew a crimson moon on his chest and whispered a passage of prayer from the Church of the Night Goddess. At the end of the prayer, Tang said, "The only destination is peace." This is the story about that school. Leticia, Jella, it's time to sleep. Yalin Catherine tucked the quilt around her granddaughters. "Be good and sleep well, or monsters will come and take away disobedient children in the middle of the night." "Grandma, I will sleep well." "Yes, I will watch Jella sleep." Leticia. "Who wants you to watch me, Jella? You always wet the bed at night. You're so old. Ha 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 ha, don't tickle me. No, no." Yalin Catherine couldn't help but smile, revealing a kind expression. She closed the storybook and placed it on the bedside table. "Okay, we have to get up early tomorrow. Don't you like honey bread with nut butter the most? Grandma will make it for you tomorrow, so go to sleep now." "Okay, Grandma." This was the more obedient Jella. "Grandma, I have a small question." This was Leticia, who didn't want to sleep. "What is it?" Yalin Catherine tucked the quilt around her granddaughters again, which had come loose because of their playfulness. Leticia asked with curiosity and childlike innocence, "Is there really such a school? Delicious bread. Everyone can read and write. And there are very bright lights, very tall buildings, and. Yes." Yalin Catherine seemed to fall into memories, but her tone was particularly affirmative. "It must still exist in some corner of this world." Fifth Epoch, early Black Iron Era, the Abraham family split. Due to disagreements within the family, the elders finally decided to divide the Abraham family into two. One part would rely on the protection provided by outsiders to gain opportunities for promotion and obtain the power to resist the whispers of the full moon. These people were led by Olson Abraham, the elder of the Abraham family at the time, who had already become a secret sorcerer. He led the Abraham members who had split off from the family to an unknown territory. The remaining part guarded the last glory of the Abraham family, controlled some important, zero-level sealed artifacts, cultivated their own trusted apprentices, and prepared to unlock the secrets of the bloodline curse themselves. without relying on others, and still maintained the remaining dignity of the Abraham family. Fifth Epoch, early Black Iron Era, Amon, who was under close surveillance by the Eternal Blazing Sun Church and the Artisan Church within the Intis Empire, was attacked. Pale's Zoroaster launched a counterattack. With the help of a newly promoted Time Worm, the internal war for the throne of the Thief pathway was reignited. And this time, it was no longer Amon unilaterally hunting other angels of the Thief pathway. Who could eat whom? Who would become the Angel of Kings of this pathway? Amon, who had lost his uniqueness and a Sequence 1 characteristic, would face Pale's Zoroaster and an Angel of Kings puppet who possessed the uniqueness of this pathway, 1+1. The various middle and high sequence beyonders of the Zoroaster family and the Jacob family actively participated, trying to kill this Time Angel, destroy the Amon family, and regain the glory of their ancestors. The atmosphere within the Thief pathway became more intense than before. Tingnan City. The Nighthawk system was officially established. After seeing that this corresponding system was more efficient and easier to manage than the previous method of bishops and clergy undertaking multiple functions, the Lord of Storms quickly completed the reform as well. Although the Artisan God Church was a step behind, as the Orthodox Church recognized locally, it also formed its own official Beander team to manage the believers of the artisans in various places. However, the weakest of the 7 Orthodox churches, the one that appeared the shortest time, was directly rejected by the Night Church when it tried to preach in Tingnan. The one who negotiated with the Artisan Church was a young man wearing a monocle named Nicola Flamel, who was an angel-level powerhouse that the Artisan Church never knew about. Artisan Church. Tingnan is the birthplace of various bizarre stories, the source of various widely spread stories, and also one of the core areas for the initial development of the Nighthawk system. In his later years, Admiral Owen Rand returned to Tingnan after returning his corresponding rights to the royal family. He was appointed by the Rune royal family, the Augustus family, and in view of his contribution to Rune, he was granted the title of Earl and became the local governor of Tingnan City. He began to build 2 universities here, one named after the city, Tingnan, and the other named Khoi. Now, Rune is gradually entering a period of development, and various cultures are gradually rising. Under the decision of the governor, various cultural trends have gradually emerged in Tingnan City. The most important is the academy system, led by Tingnan and Khoi, with the main purpose of knowledge dissemination. Now, Rune is developing rapidly. This is the worst of times and the best of times. The curtain of 300 years is about to end, and a new drama is about to be staged. I am the greatest magician of this century. Countless sheets of paper, recording the history of ancient times, transformed into streaks of deep red flames. The frost crystals and the blood of the Fugan hound were completely consumed by the flames, turning into boundless, thin, grayish-white mist. This grayish-white mist was ancient, solemn, and carried a heavy aura inherent to history. Subsequently, another object was thrown into this constantly condensing and expanding grayish-white mist. With the addition of the primary ingredient for the ancient scholar potion, the concentrated mist formed by history shrank inward and collapsed. After a series of reactions, it ultimately solidified into a bubbling, dull-colored substance. A slightly pale hand, due to years of not being exposed to the sun, held the potion and brought it to the lips. Through the room's floor-to-ceiling windows, one could see the sky outside. The sun and the crimson moon coexisted, surrounded by twisted and bizarre buildings spiraling together, forming a layout that was both grand and terrifying, both distorted and logical. This place sometimes overlapped with the real world and sometimes shifted to unknown regions. At times, it surged with dark shadows, and at other times, corpses would crawl out from the ground. Within the countless twisted and intertwined buildings, people constantly went in and out. Some had solemn expressions, others gentle smiles. Among these countless people were men, women, children, and the elderly, people of all shapes and sizes. Their only commonality was that they all possessed illusory, transparent black threads that flew from them toward the supreme dome, connecting them to something. Tang looked at this exceptionally distorted world and then slowly drank the cup of liquid symbolizing the ancient scholar potion. Sequence 4, advancing to Sequence 3. As the potion was ingested, Tang's body involuntarily disintegrated into strands of semi-transparent worms that seemed to possess strange powers. These worms sometimes clustered together and sometimes dispersed. They were both concentrated and scattered. As the potion was consumed, they suddenly became agitated. They eagerly tore at the potion Tang had swallowed, bringing it into their bodies, reintegrating it into the spiritual body, and sharing this new delicacy with the other spirit worms. As the potion was ingested, Tang immediately saw a thin, grayish-white mist appear in his eyes. It enveloped the entire world, witnessing countless histories within it. Within this grayish-white mist that enveloped the entire world, countless historical light spots dotted it like stars, illuminating one historical crevice after another. The first thing he saw was the countless histories he himself had mastered. In the past 300 years, the entire world's pattern was undergoing earth-shattering changes. Countless secret organizations sprouted and grew like plants after rain, gradually ascending to the stage of history. The secret order's Zaratul became a sequence 2 angel, the school of life was established, the Rose School of the southern continent underwent a mutation, the bound gods state became increasingly abnormal, and behind the libertarian sect hid ancient and terrifying things. The countries of Loen, Intis, and Fursak were successively established, and the 7 gods went to the astral realm, no longer walking on the earth. During the Pale Era, Death, Salinger, joined hands with the primordial witch, Chike, to initiate the Pale Disaster, ultimately resulting in the fall of one god and the serious injury of another. During the War of the 4 Emperors, the gods personally took to the stage. The Black Emperor, the Blood Emperor, and the Night Emperor fell one after another, with the Underworld Emperor obtaining the greatest benefit. The United Empire era, the Solomon Empire era, the occurrence of the Great Cataclysm, the ancient sun god was dismembered by his subordinates, the Angel Kings, resulting in the creation of the fallen creator, the Lord of Storms, the God of Knowledge and Wisdom, and the eternal blazing sun. The ancient sun god's humanity drove the true creator mad, and divinity hid within Adam's body, reviving within this angel king of the seer pathway. In the distant Second Epoch, the ancient gods were mad and without reason. The god of wishes, Katard, Antigonus, and the goddess of misfortune, Ammonises, originated from the demon wolf clan. The First Epoch, the prehistoric era, the former era, Homeland. Countless historical fragments were lit up. Tang's memories and spirituality merged into countless time worms that swam in the mists of history. They became confused, followed their instincts, lost their own thoughts, and only wanted to swim in these countless historical fragments, unwilling to return to the real world. Countless thoughts, however, simultaneously raised their heads. Together, they saw a light spot that was completely different from the surrounding ones. Within that fragment of light, it showed Tang before he entered the extraordinary realm, the self-pitying Tang, the Tang who became a seer, the Tang who went to sea and became a marionettist, the Tang who hunted the god descenders of the dark side of the universe, the Tang who discovered Pale's Zoroaster. Becoming a trick sorcerer, creating a large number of puppets, creating bizarre stories, the adventure in the land of the abandoned by God, the attempt to open the West Continent, exploring the giant court, playing cards with the seer, manipulating the secret order, etc. etc. Everything became the anchor point of the ancient scholar. All kinds of life details were faithfully recorded in the historical mist that enveloped the entire world, becoming his cornerstone, converging into a vast ocean. This ocean rapidly swept past the countless historical fragments, allowing the countless spirit worms to merge into the ocean, tracing their origins and understanding their origins. I am a scholar from ancient times. They began to converge rapidly, reforming a completely new and complete individual. Spirituality grew rapidly. In the wonderful experience gained from advancement, Tang obtained the complete mystical knowledge of the ancient scholar sequence. He closed his eyes and then slowly opened them, revealing a pair of slightly dark and deep eyes. Smoother than I thought. This may also be because I used the thief's extraordinary abilities to interfere, excluding all historical mist records related to me in the past 300 years, perfectly achieving the ritual requirements, and I did the corresponding advance acting. Although the ritual was already completed, Tang was not in a hurry to leave the historical mist. He looked at this historical mist that seemed to envelop the entire world. After becoming an ancient scholar, compared to previously only being able to observe with the yesterday reappearance charm and Euclidean space, here he also had a more fantastical experience. He seemed to see into the depths of the historical mist, where illusory, unreal things existed. If it were the danger carried by the historical mist itself, Tang might have left directly, but his Sequence 3 spiritual intuition told him that these unreal things were closely related to him. If the experiences of 300 years ago were a stable anchor point in the advancement ritual for the ancient scholar, then the unreal things Tang saw now were also, in a sense, his anchor point. The future. Tang took a step forward, traversing through countless historical mists and fragments of light. As he approached that area, fewer and fewer things were lit up around him, as if he was about to reach the end of history, which was the current era. He passed through countless historical mists, but he immediately realized that he had not essentially approached that point. However, in Tang's vision, the grayish-white mist, which should have reached its end, seemed to have no end. It was an infinitely distant, bottomless abyss where even the grayish-white mist appeared dark. And between this side and that side, there was an invisible curtain, blocking the inside and outside, preventing prying. The more clearly Tang looked, the more he realized that the anchor point that caught his attention was a solitary point existing in the infinite history. It was both real and illusory, both existing and non-existent, an area that could not be reached by normal means. Tang pondered for a moment, his figure slowly disappearing, entering Euclidean space, and rushing into the deeper areas of the historical mist. As expected, the area that was previously inaccessible opened up to him. Countless fragments of light became clear under Euclid's spatial observation, but Tang couldn't make out the specific things within. These patches of light, each symbolizing a fragment of history, appeared stagnant, discordant, and out of sync with the real world within Euclidean space. The fog of history slowly pushed the curtain towards the depths of darkness, and each stagnant historical light spot, after entering the range that the fog of history could illuminate, shed its stagnation and disharmony, seemingly reappearing in the real world. These stagnant light spots involve a portion of the future, belonging to future history. Is this what I saw through the yesterday once more spell, the source carrying the power of the future? What should not be seen, do not see. What should not be heard, do not hear. What should not be understood, cannot be understood. Tang's spirituality also told him at this moment that when he advanced to miracle worker, acquired the angel's position, and became a power with certain divine characteristics, everything would have an answer. Once my mental state stabilizes and my spirituality calms down, I will immediately prepare to advance to miracle worker. Having made up his mind, Tang used the connection of mysticism as he moved forward, searching within Euclidean space for historical gaps and images from the future. All the historical light spots he had illuminated were gone, and he was surrounded by stagnant historical gaps. These historical gaps could not be touched or understood. After entering this place, the wonderful sense of connection suddenly weakened. Tang then used his characteristics as an antiquarian to try to re-establish a more stable connection. In the antiquarian stage, the closer the connection between the corresponding things in the historical gap image, the higher the probability of a successful pull. Among them, things that belonged to his past, that he once possessed, had the highest probability. The antiquarian borrows spirituality from his past self, also based on the mystical foundation that the connection between oneself and oneself is the deepest, to achieve this borrowing. As for dragging out one's own historical gap image, even for beyonders who have only initially advanced to antiquarian, the success rate is almost 100%. Tang used the connection between his future historical gap image and the historical light spots to quickly determine the location of the light fragment that acted as an anchor point. Unsurprisingly, as the historical gap image was pulled out by Tang, the light spot that was close at hand yet exceptionally distant was lit up, like a pocket watch that had lost its rusty shell, revealing the fine details within. The historical gap image beside him seemed to come alive. As if grafted, Tang's figure suddenly appeared beside the suddenly illuminated historical light spot. The historical gap image from the future disappeared, and in front of him, within the historical light spot, the young man sitting in a high position in the dark and cold mausoleum, holding a 3-meter-long dark golden scepter, seemed to sense something and looked in one direction. He didn't say anything, just drew a strange symbol on his chest. Tang seemed to sense something and looked around the illuminated light spot. Many historical fragments were lit up with his movements in the mausoleum. Each of them broke away from the stagnation, became real, and began to come to life. Noticing no danger, Tang hesitated for a moment, but ultimately followed his intuition and reached out to touch one of the historical light spots. He saw a mountain range. It was the Hornassus Mountains. Within Mist Village, located on the main peak of the mountain range, a person with half-white hair and coarse, black, short hairs growing on their face and body, quietly rested in an ancient palace, falling into slumber. Outside the ancient palace, a young man walked towards the palace. On one side of him was Khoi University, with the temperament of a scholar, looking calm and restrained. On the other side was a strange being who bore a 70% resemblance to the young man, like a torrent of knowledge, with a body composed of countless secret symbols and mysterious markers. Led by the young man, they entered the dark and ancient palace, seemingly preparing to conduct some kind of ritual under the gaze of a hidden existence. In the next instant, the entire historical light spot shook. It was a war that Tang couldn't see, involving countless high-ranking, terrifying existences. Even the image faithfully recorded by the fog of history, which he could only see vaguely, almost caused Tang, who had nearly completely digested the antiquarian potion, to lose control on the spot. Ah, future me, can't you be a decent person? Invisible, gray, misty air silently appeared at the moment when Tang's spirit clearly showed abnormality, covering this historical light spot. Tang almost turned into a maggot on the spot because he saw something that shouldn't exist, and when he came back to his senses, an item had appeared beside him at some point. It was one of the system's previous task rewards, the Star Observation Sketchbook. He instantly understood what this item was used for. In the next moment, incomprehensible words gradually appeared on a certain page of this seemingly ordinary sketchbook. This seemed to be the origin of all languages, the source of all languages that could now leverage the power of nature. Observer, Tang Eggers Ramde. Observation Object, Khoi University. This is a seer pathway sequence 1, one who serves the existence of the fool. With a buzz, it seemed that some existence cast a gaze of attention from an infinitely high position, and Tang's headache symptoms were greatly relieved. He seemed to sense something and raised his head, looking towards the sky above this historical fog. There was nothing there, but Tang knew very well what existed there. It was the Fortress of Spirits, the Lord of the Mysteries. Tang withdrew his gaze, closed his eyes and took a deep breath for a while, and then actively dispelled the ritual effect. He returned to his bedroom, a room that seemed unusually quiet except for the host, task completed, hurry up and look at the new task. That started to scream in his head. Distortion, go out and play, host hurry up we hurry antiquarian Aside from that, Tang rubbed his brow, his mouth twitching at his system's jumpy performance. This damned commotion, after so many years, he still couldn't stand it. Bundling up the system and throwing it to the secret puppet that had other sub-systems installed, Tang sat in the rocking chair, taking deep breaths while closing his eyes to soothe his spirituality, familiarizing himself with the new extraordinary abilities he had mastered. And, observing the state of Euclidean space. The compatibility with Euclidean space is getting higher and higher. From the beginning, I could only use the authority of that space to achieve the purpose of observation. To sequence 4, I could initially leverage the power of Euclidean space, and then to sequence 3, I could use Euclidean space to extend the power of the antiquarian into the future, gaining some kind of gift. The miracle worker of sequence 2, the servant of mystery of sequence 1, should also have corresponding degrees of improvement, and the secrets of this space should be unlocked in part after he reaches the angel level. After advancing to antiquarian, he always felt that there was a big mine buried inside, just waiting for him to jump around a few times and then blow him away. Task status updated. Main task 1, advance to sequence 3, ancient scholar. Task status completed. Task. Open black lens bracket. The act of ancient scholar. Close black lens bracket. Ancient scholar, it means a scholar originating from ancient times, and it also means a scholar who studies ancient times. After you become an ancient scholar, the ancient and the historical exist together. Originating from ancient times, the essence of ancient is the philosophy pursued by the ancient scholar throughout their life. Task completion. 99%. Rewards have been issued, please check them. Host. Tingnan City, inside a coffee shop at the corner of Red Moon Street, Tang watched as the waiter brought over a cup of coffee from the Onyx Highlands and strawberry ice cream cake, savoring the pastries improved by some eccentrics in recent years, while waiting for someone to arrive. He didn't have to wait too long. Not more than a few minutes passed before a person walked in from the entrance of the coffee shop, heading straight towards Tang's direction. It was a young man with a well-defined face, light brown eyes, and slightly curly, pale hair, with gentle features. He was currently wearing a black silk top hat and a matching formal suit, with a silver tie pin on his chest. In his right eye socket, he wore a monocle carved from crystal, looking refined and gentle, giving people a feeling of peace and restraint, yet with a strange, incongruous temperament, quite eye-catching and distinctive. "Long time no see." The visitor bowed and removed his top hat to show respect. "Long time no see, Nicola." Tang sat there, and only picked up the coffee on the table after the person sat down. Nicola Flamel, named after a 14th-century alchemist from back home, just like Merlin Hermes from the Arthurian legends. Sherlock Moriarty from Sherlock Holmes, and its main villain, James Moriarty, is the kind of name that looks normal, but if a transmigrator familiar with this history saw it, they would probably think there's a problem. A familiar name. Of course, people who don't know this part of the story are more likely to associate him with an item from Harry Potter. The original owner of this name was the creator of the Philosopher's Stone, which could turn lead into gold. Similarly, there's the Gates of Aben and others beneath the Church of the Night. All sorts of strange legends. Miskatonic University, a name that sounds very proper. Ahem, getting off track. Now, the secret puppet given this name is a true angel, equal to Pales and Aemon, a sequence one-time worm. Although it doesn't contain the uniqueness of the seer pathway, this secret puppet itself is almost equivalent to a king of angels walking on the ground, the kind that can fight Aemon. In recent years, since another time worm was born, Pales left Tingnan and began to counter-track Aemon. Nicola stayed in Tingnan, responsible for providing long-distance assistance to Pales. When Aemon gained the upper hand, he would directly flash to Amon's side and stuff the monocle into his arms. Then, the uniqueness of the seer pathway would follow an unknown law, directly targeting Aemon once it came into contact, unleashing a knowledge chases people frenzy, forcing Aemon to retreat, losing the advantage he had worked so hard to gain. As seers of the same pathway, the seer pathway's civil war chased from Intis to Fursak, then to Loen, and finally to Faysak, fighting fiercely. If it weren't for the fact that the high-ranking members of the seer pathway are inherently difficult to detect, the orthodox churches of each country would have directly kicked them out of their territory because of this endless fighting. If you want to cause trouble, go cause trouble somewhere else. In response to this kind of attack, this kind of upside-down behavior, Amon's occasional counterattacks were equally powerful, but unfortunately, Pales and Nicola were not fighting alone. Two Sequence 1 angels, coupled with the god of wishes, Kotar, who occasionally returns from the southern continent to backstab, and the Sequence 1 history void image summoned by Zaradul, who has advanced to Sequence 2, even if inexplicable coincidences always occur to allow Aemon to escape each time, it also makes it difficult for him to hide and cause mischief. 300 years is enough for many changes to occur. Now, Aemon has become the one being chased and torn apart. The changes in the current situation are not limited to this. After becoming an ancient scholar and leaving the theater, Tang did not immediately connect to the spirit body lines of those important secret puppets to obtain information from them, but instead wandered around Tingnan City, which he had not seen for a long time. Compared to the former Tingnan, the establishment of Khoi University and Tingnan University in this city, and the formation of a knowledge and academic system, have led to many things that are different from the past. Clean roads, glass with colorful patterns, more stable house structures, underground sewage pipes. With the help of secret puppets and various assistants from the system over the 300 years since Owen established Khoi University and Tingnan University, Many things in Tingnan now contradict Tang's understanding of Tingnan, which has further digested his ancient scholar potion. In just a few days, seriously playing the role of scholar from ancient times is enough for him to end the digestion of the ancient scholar potion, achieve spiritual stability and extraordinary ability, and then he can start the ritual to advance to sequence 2, Miracle Inventor. Nicola also understood what Tang needed now. He talked about the recent changes in Tingnan City, and Tang listened carefully. In a moment, time passed quickly, and the sun gradually fell from the sky overhead, sliding towards the west. Tang saw that the number of pedestrians outside the window gradually increased. Ordinary people dressed as workers and students appeared on the streets one after another, bustling and lively. Strange lights lit up on both sides of the road. Those lights were not gas lamps, but rather something he didn't recognize being lit and stuffed inside, emitting a light that was not hot, but somewhat dim. But Tang's gaze was not focused on those strange lights. He glanced at the pedestrians outside. As an ancient scholar who is good at manipulating spirit body lines and further manipulating the Euclidean space, even without entering that space, he still possesses certain characteristics. He saw that the spirit body lines of these people were strange and abnormal. The system quickly marked those guys with abnormal spirit body lines for him, and they were all his secret puppets. Oh, secret puppets, then it's nothing. How many secret puppets are there in Tingnan now? Tang was quite curious about this. 2/10 living people, 1/10 monsters, strange tales and dead people, and the rest are secret puppets. Nicola said very honestly, completely unaware of whether this scale of secret puppets was normal or not. That is to say, at least 70% of the humans and humanoids in the entire Tingnan have been fitted with the bionic secret puppet module, possessing autonomous action and a life script. As a city with two well-known universities, Khoi and Tingnan, Tingnan's population, while not comparable to Backland and Ston, has also seen a significant increase in recent years. This is not only due to the gradual consolidation of the Loen government, but also because the development prospects of Tingnan itself have gained widespread attention. The two universities established 300 years ago, to some extent, cultivated talent and stimulated the world's landscape, prompting the Loen kingdom to value talent in local culture and knowledge. This was an inevitable result, attracting many talented individuals from all over Loen to take the initiative to come. Otherwise, the proportion of marionettes in Tingnan should float even higher. Nicola pinched his monocle. In the cafe, students were selecting coffee, waiters were holding trays, baristas were mixing drinks, and pastry chefs were making pastries. Outside the window, many people stopped in their tracks, simultaneously raising their heads, looking at Tang and Nicola, and revealing an identical smile. Subsequently, in the horrified gazes of others, these people took out monocles from their pockets, from the void, and wore them in their right eye sockets. Countless spirit threads emerged from their bodies, intertwining with each other like a towering ancient tree constantly extending upwards, flying towards the highest dome. Tang leaned back on the sofa, ignoring his own screaming, distorted system, and sighed, "Not bad. Ah, it feels like coming home." System. The system sometimes felt ashamed that its host wasn't a pervert. The Church of the Night, the Church of the Storms, and the Church of Steam Machinery have no objections to this? Regarding some details, as an ancient scholar who has been hiding for 300 years, Tang doesn't monitor the eating, drinking, and lavatory habits of each of his marionettes at all times. He knows some major events, but relies on the marionette's own judgment for minor matters. For this kind of question, what actually needs to be cared about is the Church of the Storms and the Church of Steam Machinery. The Church of the Storms has no objections, as for the Church of Steam Machinery. Speaking of this, Nicola, while stealing the memories of those who were so frightened by this strange scene that they fainted on the spot, paused for a moment while demonstrating for Tang, and then said quietly, "There is no Church of Steam Machinery cathedral in Tingnan. Having created so many strange things, the Church of Steam Machinery didn't establish a cathedral here, absorbing believers of the god of steam and machinery to provide assistance to their lord? Is the current pope of the Church of Steam Machinery a bit of an idiot?" Nicola instantly understood Tang's thoughts and silently grabbed the system that was preparing to escape. It's not that the Church of Steam Machinery doesn't want to preach in Tingnan, but that we refused the Church of Steam Machinery to preach in Tingen. Refused the Church of Steam Machinery to preach in Loen? Tang glanced at the system that had been pulled back and immediately understood the hidden meaning in his marionette's words. Good fellow, he clicked his tongue twice and said to his system. Are you planning not to give the god of steam machinery the chance to digest the potion, keeping him in a relatively weak state? The god of steam machinery ascended to the throne under duress, without fully digesting the seer potion, which also made this deity, born in the Fourth Epoch, significantly different from other deities, urgently needing some opportunity to help him stabilize his own state. Over the past 300 years, the small gadgets invented by the marionettes in Tingen have shown the Church of Steam Machinery a glimmer of hope. Perhaps the god of steam machinery personally performed divination, and the resulting prophecy is playing a role. However, the Sequence 1 angel located here received a small hint from their creator, the system, and, together with the Church of the Night, refused the Church of Steam Machinery's participation. The system said with righteous indignation, "Host, we are on the same side. If Rosal comes down, are you also planning to cut off his ties with the Church of Steam Machinery?" Tang asked. If possible, the system's electronic voice carried a hint of eerie excitement. Host, Mission 2, let's not switch to Knowledge Mentor and Sage, just let the steam machinery hang in there. Main Quest 2, recover the Sequence 1 uniqueness and characteristics of the Hermit and Perfection pathways. The system has a close connection with the knowledge more. In the state of the Hermit's hidden divinity, the system has been staring at that biggest cake for countless nights, drooling. Now that its host has also become a Sequence 3, and there are still many high sequence marionettes under his command, when will the host become the fool, and then lead a large group of marionettes to launch an attack, capturing the Church of Steam Machinery, and the host will then go to the starry sky to slap the god of steam machinery in the face. When the god of steam machinery begs for mercy, it will swallow the god of steam machinery in one gulp, and then transform itself, ta-da. It will definitely not be a useless snack when it becomes a perfection. Are you thinking of me a little too powerfully? Tang's mouth twitched, and he rubbed his forehead at the system's unrealistic cyberpunk dreams, then looked at Nicola opposite him. What was their reaction? The Church of Steam Machinery wouldn't tear face with Loen and the Church of the Night for this, but thinking carefully about the strangeness here is really a bit beyond common sense, and it's not surprising that the headquarters in Intis would suspect something. They accepted it, but not so sincerely, Nicola thought for a moment and said. Although we refused the Church of Steam Machinery to preach in Tingen, many believers of steam machinery came to Tingen from all over the country, entering those two universities to study. Some of them are well-known scholars, and some have strong talents in forging, polishing, and other aspects. Handled very well. Tang pondered for a moment and nodded. Okay, then let's hang them out to dry. He had no feelings for the Church of Steam Machinery. He didn't mind providing some assistance to the Church of Steam Machinery, allowing the god of steam machinery to continue contributing to the continuation of Earth and humanity, as long as it didn't involve his own core interests. But if it reaches the point where the system can swallow the god of steam machinery and accommodate the Sequence 1 and uniqueness of perfection, as long as he can guarantee that the knowledge more and he are on the same line, he doesn't mind someone else replacing the god of steam machinery. Cough cough. The words are a bit far off. Since his system doesn't like the god of steam machinery, then he will quietly cause some trouble later. For example, abducting a certain Mr. Huang from Intis to Tingen, or something. Whether the god of steam machinery will keep the title of steam machinery until the arrival of the doomsday is hard to say. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. The Night Church tacitly approved of Tingen's current situation. The Storm Church, for unknown reasons, perhaps because it hadn't even noticed the problem in Tingen, maintained a very normal attitude. The Craftsman Church couldn't even enter Tingen at all. Without close contact, the possibility of discovering the city's secrets was naturally greatly reduced. The three orthodox churches of the Kingdom of Loen had no objections to the current state of Tingen. In addition, with the cooperation of Nicola Flamel, Sequence 1 Time Worm, from the Night Church, Even if the Augustus family of the Loen royal family learned of the problem in Tingen through issued orders, the seer pathway's connection to the territory's mysteries, the situation of various sealed artifacts, and the state of the console, they would have to make concessions because of the Night Church's attitude and the sequence 1 angel in Tingen. Although the Augustus family was an angel family, and their founder, William I, the sequence 1 Hand of Order, was still alive and the actual ruler of Loen, they certainly possessed many powerful sealed artifacts. But if they had to choose between offending a sequence 1 angel skilled in hiding themselves from the thief pathway in a city, they would naturally know which was more important. The existence of an angel was like a nuclear bomb. Just having it there was enough to scare people. Moreover, this nuclear bomb in Tingen was not under their control. Not understanding the situation and actively provoking the other party without showing hostility was the most foolish thing to do. And sometimes, the deterrent power of a visible angel and an invisible angel was completely different. Nicola took out some yellowed papers and handed them to Tang. These are some mystical notes written by members of the secret order. I think the content should meet your expectations. Tang took the stack of notes and flipped through them one by one, using the light in the cafe. These yellowed notes looked like they were quite old. Over the past 300 years, the secret order had been hollowed out from the outside to the inside, becoming an empty shell, actually filled with marionettes, a secret organization of marionettes and marionettes. And from this organization, the Beyonders who followed the seer pathway, most of their mystical notes, after special control, were quite normal, simply recording mystical knowledge, potion recipes, and various experiences. As Tang flipped through them, he quickly memorized the contents of these notes through the enhancement brought by Sequence 3. The more he looked, the more satisfied he became. Aha! The contents of these notes seemed very normal at first glance, but in fact, the further back he flipped, the more chaotic and important the notes became. Tang could see the words, "eating people," written all over them. The difference in personality between the writers before and after, the abnormality of their mental state, the way they described things, just seeing it can make people feel physically uncomfortable. Tang remembered the mystical notes written by a faceless he had commanded in the secret order when he was bored. The things recorded in that note seemed to be this kind of routine. Starting without noticing, then gradually discovering the surrounding abnormalities, until finally, joining the abnormality together. If you only look at the normal ones at the beginning, or only look at the problematic ones, there won't be too much conflict. If this was a gradual process, if it was a plot in a novel, then it would only be a qualified horror story. But if this kind of thing happened in reality, if a horror story entered reality, that would be really interesting. The secret order was one of the most peaceful secret organizations. Even in the orthodox churches, the records of the secret order were quite rare, let alone wild beyonders. They might not even know the existence of this secret organization before they came into contact with beyonders of the seer pathway. Have these notes been spread out? Zarathustra has done some mystical processing. Currently, only a small number of notes containing mystical knowledge have been leaked out, and they have been discovered. This hasn't caused any abnormalities, but many wild beyonders who don't have enough understanding of extraordinary knowledge are seeking similar things in some of their own mystical gatherings. And what could arouse the desire of those wild beyonders who naturally lack guidance more than the notes of a mystical master? After all, notes recording mystical knowledge, to some extent, were also things that those wild beyonders particularly craved. And even just reprinting those normal mystical notes could, from a certain perspective, secretly spread the abnormality that the secret order's state is not right. Nicola pinched the monocle carved from crystal and smiled. When they gradually collect most of the notes, I think they will be able to come into contact with those truly problematic notes. That's quite interesting, isn't it? The master of the mystical notes you follow is crazy. The mental shock of comparing the before and after, those beyonders who collect the notes and are frightened by the weirdness and horror, will become one of the ways for Tang's mystery faceless potion to be digested. Tang put down the yellowed notes in his hand and stared at the marionette in front of him seriously. After a few seconds, he lowered his gaze. It seems that Amon's part of consciousness is stitched together with you very well. Very good, this is really very Amen. Nicola smiled, your request is my desire. Then, let's start preparing for the advancement ritual. Tang ate the last bite of pastry, preparing to stroll around the world in the next 2 days, striving to digest the Scholar of Your potion completely within a week. Nicola nodded with a smile. Tang stood up and left the cafe. The crimson moon in the sky remained, with stars surrounding this starry sky, giving Tang the illusion of gazing at the distant and boundless universe. Tang stared at the sky above his head for a few seconds, then his figure disappeared, returning to his residence. A young man wearing a peaked cap walked out of the spirit world. He carried a postman's bag, dressed as a common Loen postman, looking ordinary and simple. His appearance did not attract anyone's attention, and no one noticed. This young man who walked out of the spirit world wore thick coarse cloth gloves on his hands. From the bag he was carrying, which seemed to be filled with letters, he took out a letter. After confirming his destination was correct through the words written in Hermes on the back of the letter, he flicked the letter out. A letter sealed with red lacquer, simple and clean but with a certain weight, flew in the wind as the postman moved, as if by magic. The letter passed through the neatly trimmed courtyard and entered through the gap at the bottom of the door of the target address. After doing all this, the postman carrying the heavy bag hurriedly disappeared in place, seemingly rushing to the next destination. The letter lay silently on the carpet inside the door until the cleaning maid of the mansion discovered the inexplicably appearing letter and gave it to the owner of the mansion. Miskatonic, Archer, I didn't know you'd been in contact with any universities lately? The master of the mansion handed the letter to his youngest son. Archer Lancaster, already in his early 20s, with blonde hair and blue eyes, and quite handsome, frowned as he took the letter from his father's desk. Seeing the sender's address on the envelope, written in Hermes script as Miskatonic University, Registry Office, for Mr. Archer Lancaster, he pondered for a moment, then shook his head. I certainly haven't been in contact with any universities. Perhaps they're seeking cooperation, father. Seeking cooperation? The middle-aged man, nearing 40, with a somewhat rugged appearance, laughed heartily, slapping the table with a bang. Interesting. A university wants to cooperate with us? Immediately afterward, he snorted coldly. HMPH. Those so-called universities nowadays are nothing more than groups of people with no power, no money, and no land. They're useless, just self-important fools. Those guys, a bunch of sons of bitches, look down on us money grubbers. Every time I see those people, I want to wring their heads off and stuff them up their asses. They know a few words and think they're superior to us scum. Archer, we don't need technology, we don't need unrealistic things. I know you've been researching similar things lately, but you understand that the reason we can stand our ground and haven't had our territory taken away by those damned fellows isn't because of that knowledge. We rely on weapons. We rely on iron-blooded methods. What's the use of those words? They can't even curse someone properly. It was evident that this man, with his rugged features and imposing demeanor, expressed extreme dissatisfaction and deep disgust for the so-called universities in every word and sentence. The so-called universities, apart from those legitimate, publicly funded specialized schools supported by the Loen government, also included many organizations that existed in the form of academic discussions and seminars. They called themselves XX University, but in reality, they not only had a small number of people and scarce funding but even had to frequently change their main research location, and most of them were in abandoned buildings. These organizations, flaunting the name of XX University, and posing as scholars, were not uncommon in Loen in recent years. I understand, father. Archer put down the letter, not intending to open it immediately. He put the letter in his pocket and said to his father, the Silas gang will be coming to 31 Griffin Street at 3 p.m. today. Their sincerity is sufficient. Archer's father waved his hand, indicating that he understood. Archer left his father's study and returned to his room, taking the letter out of his pocket. He was silent for a long while before he opened the letter. Inside were a series of words written in fluent Hermes, but not as Archer had guessed, from some unknown university or a non-funded organization seeking to obtain some pounds through cooperation. It was an explanation made in an extremely official tone. Dear Mr. Archer Lancaster, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to Miskatonic University. Relevant instructions are enclosed with this letter. The semester is scheduled to begin on September 1, 513. We will await your reply before July 31st. Miskatonic University, Registry Office. Sincerely, Joshi Collins. Precautions. In the Rivera district of Winter County, a girl held a piece of paper, hiding in a dark, narrow place, shivering, and wrapping her worn coat tighter around herself. She softly muttered the strange words on the letter. Although she didn't recognize those words, she could understand every single one, as if those words were automatically arranged into a structure that she could understand. Even if she didn't understand Loen, had never heard of Hermes, didn't know giant language, dragon language, or other languages, even a tramp who had never received any education could understand. Please sign your name on the enclosed ticket before July 31st. If you are not sure how to write your name, please drip your blood on the ticket. This behavior has the same effect. If no special explanation is given for overdue situations, the school will default to your giving up this admission qualification. Please be aware of the relevant situation. After confirming receipt of the letter, the Spirit World Express will arrive at your location at 8 p.m. on August 31st. Please board the train with your ticket at that time. If you lose your ticket, please apply for a replacement ticket from the conductor after boarding. Miskatonic University, the greatest miracle of this era. The school has picturesque scenery throughout the 4 seasons and is at the forefront of the world in terms of mystics, history, archaeology, theology, psychology, medicine, mathematics, etc. The school has advanced teaching facilities and a strong teaching staff. In addition to high-quality teaching, the school is also committed to enriching students' after-school life and has organized many exploration team building activities, with footprints all over the world. The school is renowned in academic circles for its rich collection of books in its library. The school's museum has a rich collection and is open to the public regularly. If you are a seeker determined to explore the truth of the world, then this school must be your best choice. Experts and professors in various fields will guide you here. Tang looked at the enrollment brochure he wrote with satisfaction. Well, if translated, the general meaning would be: all fields are at the forefront of the world, emptying the system's reserves, and by the way, plucking a handful of wool from the knowledge wilderness. After 300 years of precipitation, if the knowledge reserves of these secret puppets can't reach the forefront of the world and crush the local bumpkins here, then the system might as well commit seppuku. Enrich students' after-school life, organize exploration team building activities, footprints all over the world. The secret puppets are running around the world, and the secret puppets who have been promoted to occultists and the secret puppets with spirit worms are frantically developing their downlines one after another. Filling the entire world is just around the corner. A rich collection of books, Necronomicon, the kind that explodes at a glance. The museum has a rich collection. Monocle, want to know more? Number 187 Chapter 187186 Spirit World Express AI Model. Gemini-2.0-FLASH. Miskatonic University, Main Gate. A huge, and somewhat menacing, steel behemoth stood quietly here. Platforms, thanks to the power of miracles, continuously emerged from the void, only to be modified and repaired by mysterious forces, deepening the details and creating various symbols that combined ornamentation and mystery. Terminal Station. Miskatonic University. At this moment, at the main gate, workers from the Seer Pathway and the Secret Suppliant Pathway were making final preparations. This steel behemoth, jointly conceived by the fields of mysticism and science, was being assembled bit by bit. Various mysterious symbols and complex markings occasionally appeared on the windows of the steam train, sometimes wandering along the front and rear of the train. One complex symbol after another emerged and disappeared under the scrutiny of the workers, elegant and capable of bringing an undeniable shock to those who saw it for the first time. A construction that transcends the era, a perfect combination of mysticism and science, an unprecedented miracle. Tang looked at this machine creation that transcended the era and pulled out a ticket from the gaps of history. Spirit World Express, Arkham, Line 1, pre-sale ticket. This ticket is not open to the public, only for use by school personnel. Starting station. Ruin Kingdom, Ahova County, Ting'an City. Terminal station. Miskatonic University. The entire journey will take 8 hours. Please keep your luggage with you during this time. follow the instructions of the train staff, and board and disembark in an orderly manner. During the journey of this train, you will see things that you cannot understand. If you experience nausea, vomiting, or other problems, please inform the train staff in a timely manner. The train conductor for this train, Rivera Abraham, sincerely hopes you have a wonderful travel experience. Tang boarded the steam train and entered its familiar yet unfamiliar carriage scene. A little nostalgic, well, just a little. It's just a little regrettable that I'm not some keyboard warrior. Before the transmigration, I didn't make up for my lack of knowledge with strange fantasies like, I'm going to transmigrate. I can only consume knowledge fragments to exchange for corresponding information from the system. Otherwise, as a seer, as long as he had seen it, even if he hadn't looked that carefully, he could completely recall it through dream divination, without needing to use the system at all. Of course, change the appearance a bit and directly turn it into a maglev train, or a high-speed train, that's not a problem either. As long as the grade is sufficient and I have the corresponding authority, I can create an airplane right now, in the form of a historical void image. However, if we were to talk about the difference between this and the steam trains of the Rosal the Great era. If you ignore the magical colors, it is estimated that the steam train created by Rosal the Great and the steam train in the knowledge he exchanged with knowledge fragments would not have any essential differences in terms of appearance or power supply. But in the end, what drives this steam train is not steam power in the general sense, but the power of knowledge inherent in various mystical symbols. The Necronomicon itself is equivalent to a high-level item of the knowledge pathway that has been contaminated. 300 years is enough for Tang and many of his marionettes to explore all the contents of this book, sort it out, and put it into practice, turning it into his own mystical knowledge. To allow a steam train to travel rapidly in the spirit world, travel to various countries and regions without causing any impact, and effectively avoid the threats of most high-level creatures in the spirit world, the contribution of the knowledge in this book is indispensable. Tang found an empty seat and sat down, watching the busy marionettes outside. They were doing the final debugging of the train, making the final preparations before departure. Soon, the marionettes stationed in the newly built train platform, the train had emitted a whistle-like hum. The gears began to turn, and various mystical symbols flowed on the surface of this trackless steam train, shimmering with brilliance. Ladies and gentlemen, the train is about to depart. Please check your belongings. If you have any problems, please contact the staff in this carriage. An ethereal female voice sounded from overhead. Tang looked out the window. The train platform outside began to gradually recede, and the iconic, 4 to 5 meter high, huge black iron gate of Miskatonic University was also gradually shrinking. Outside this city, there was still a considerable amount of wilderness. The trackless steam train roared and moved steadily on the rugged road. The train is about to enter the spirit world. The surrounding light and shadows suddenly dimmed. Red, white, yellow, and black, countless color blocks with rich colors appeared rapidly during the train's journey. They wrapped this steel behemoth, which was hundreds of meters long, and with a slight sense of dizziness, the train quickly entered the spirit world and disappeared into the end of the wilderness. In the spirit world, which was full of rich and conspicuous colors and filled with various bizarre creatures, a steam train that was out of place here roared into it. The flashing lights in the train returned to normal immediately after a moment of dimness. Looking out the window again, various twisted and abstract symbols and various strange creatures of the spirit world suddenly appeared in front of Tang. Carrying a suitcase, Archer Lancaster stood at the street corner. He looked around, and after confirming that no one was following him, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Afterward, he felt a trace of timidity and unease, as well as a kind of inexplicable pleasure. The letter from someone called Miskatonic University was not actually that trustworthy. Whether it was the strange address and precautions or the seemingly ordinary ticket, it all made one feel that this was a ridiculous prank that could not be more ridiculous. There are indeed many forces in this world that are beyond human imagination. Archer himself had also come into contact with some mystical matters. This kind of thing is quite common, especially in places where lower-level workers gather. Sometimes, people even lose their lives because of these unimaginable things. As the child of a gang leader who controlled several streets and some docks, He was naturally familiar with the existence of the supernatural and had some understanding of it. But unlike his father, who hoped that he would also become a gang leader, Archer liked to explore the unknown and liked to study knowledge. After knowing the other side of this world, he had been trying to understand it. Recently, he successfully joined a mystical circle with real supernatural power and obtained a potion formula called Assassin. Miskatonic University, this university with a strange name. Archer naturally couldn't just trust the contents written in the letter after just one glance, but he was indeed moved by the sentence, "If you are a knowledge seeker determined to explore the truth of the world, then this school must be your best choice. Experts and professors in various fields will guide you here." The truth of the world. What exactly is the truth of this world? What exactly is wrong with this world? Filled with a strange impulse, Archer held the ticket, its front depicting a miniature university, the back showing a clear train, the train number and boarding time, and finally, his own signature, standing fixed at the alley entrance, his heart pounding with anticipation as he waited for that moment to arrive, each second ticking by. 7:58, 7:59, 8 o'clock. As the hand of the pocket watch pointed to 8 o'clock, the area around him, stained red by the crimson moon, remained silent. This city lacked a nightlife with lights after dark. Many of the lower-class people, after a busy day earning money, couldn't bear to light a candle, letting the room brighten during an already uneventful night. Here, all was quiet. Nothing happened. Not even a dog passed by to bark. Archer's hand, gripping the luggage, tightened and then loosened, a mix of disappointment and bewilderment washing over him. He was disappointed that the ticket in his hand seemed to be nothing more than a complete hoax. There was no, "Please hold this ticket at any location in your city. Remain alone as much as possible 3 minutes before the departure time. This train will provide you with a waiting service." It was just toying with him, wasting his time. He was bewildered, wondering how he would explain to his father that he had believed a ridiculous joke, leaving alone with his luggage at this hour. Archer twitched his lips, and just as he was about to turn and leave, accepting the consequences of his mindless actions, a strange sound suddenly came from beside him. Woo! In the deep night, starlight scattered warmth through the brightly polished windows. Archer turned his head, his eyes widening as he looked at the enormous, terrifying monster that had stopped on the street at some point, resembling a sandworm from some horror story. He didn't immediately drop his luggage and run. Restraining the urge driven by the frantic secretion of hormones was the most he could manage. "Are you Mr. Archer Lancaster?" On the surface of the steel behemoth in front of Archer, something resembling a door slowly opened and moved to the side, revealing a young man wearing a half-high silk top hat, a military green coat, cream-colored trousers, white gloves, and black, unlaced boots. He held a list, seemingly checking names. Seeing Archer standing there blankly, not saying anything, the conductor politely asked again. This time, Archer hurriedly nodded in agreement. With the conductor's help, he placed his luggage in the designated luggage compartment, then somewhat nervously handed the ticket to the conductor. "Your seat number is 12 carriage, 1B. Please let me know if you can't find it." The conductor tore off a quarter of the ticket and handed the rest back to Archer. Okay. A slight vibration ran through his feet as the door they had just entered was closed by the conductor. The monster seemed to be moving again. Strange, this is all too strange. Archer walked somewhat dazedly to the place marked 12, 1B, in Intis, Ruin, Fursak, and other languages, finding that 2 people were already sitting there. The 2 people, a man and a woman, one with high cheekbones, a thin face, blue eyes, flamboyant hair, and rather exaggerated clothes. She seemed to be attending a high society ball, individualistic and bold, with a strong curiosity about everything around her. The other was a man over 6 feet tall, wearing a linen shirt and simple trousers of the same color, but they looked rather old, along with a pair of leather boots. He looked quite helpless and shocked, mumbling to himself, seeming not too bright. The latter was likely a Fursak. After all, in Ruin, it was rare to see men over 6 feet tall. Seeing someone coming, the tall woman with blue eyes smiled at Archer, her smile bright and uninhibited, yet making people subconsciously feel no malice towards her. "Hello, I am Celia Jane. Hello, Archer Lancaster." Archer found his seat, sitting next to the 6-foot-plus Fursak, directly opposite Celia Jane. The 6-foot-plus giant mumbled, "Regulus Albert. What a coincidence, did you also receive that strange notice and board this train?" Archer steadied his mind, accepting the use of the term Tron to describe this large construct very quickly, but he was more curious about something else. "Did you also come aboard through that strange notice?" "Yes, we did." Celia Jane nodded lightly. "I am Intis, from Trier. This big guy is Fursak, a resident of Montbel City." "One from Trier, the capital of Intis, and the other from Fursak? Does that university called Miskatonic recruit students from the entire northern continent?" Archer was slightly shocked by his earlier guess that Miskatonic might just be a newly built university in a certain city within the Kingdom of Ruin, but he didn't expect the woman calling herself Celia Jane to suddenly raise her head lightly, looking at the wall clock in the carriage. She said, "Speaking of which, an hour ago, we were still in Intis." Archer was stunned, questioning his hearing for the first time in his life. "An hour ago? No, wait, what do you mean we were still in Intis an hour ago? This is Ruin, and even the fastest horses, running day and night, would need at least a month to cross the border and reach the border of the Intis Empire. What does it mean that we were still in Intis an hour ago?" Suddenly, Archer heard the humming of some kind of device. Even after seeing it once, this scene still makes me feel an unparalleled shudder. Following the gazes of Celia Jane and the 6-foot-plus Fursak who called himself Regulus Albert, Archer couldn't help but focus his gaze on the world outside the window. There, the dim, silent streets had disappeared. Countless reds, whites, yellows, blues, and colors of all kinds were like overturned ink paintings. Countless color blocks overlapped, forming a magnificent world where the sense of up, down, left, right, direction, and distance were completely lost. "Ladies and gentlemen, the train has entered the spirit world. Next stop, Kingdom of Ruin, Intersea County, Michael City." The pitch-black night and countless low buildings disappeared from view. Passing through layers of rich colors, the train smoothly entered a world beyond imagination and understanding. Here, there was no distinction between up and down, left and right. Whether it was gravity or attraction, all the fundamental laws were invalid. This was the world of the occult, a miracle beyond nature. Through the train window, Archer saw a dense array of colorful things outside. Among them floated a giant blue moon, castle-like black chunks of flesh, and little elves with green wings. Some quietly watched the train, which defied imagination, as it shuttled through the spirit world, a realm of countless symbolic signs and hidden existences, watching it gradually move away. Others were eager to try attacking this giant thing, but upon attempting to do so, they seemed to see something indescribable, and hastily fled the area around the train, escaping into unknown regions. The train traveled safely between countless richly colored blocks. The inside of the carriage was incredibly stable, without the bumps of a horse-drawn carriage, as if it was only moving in place. No one could have imagined that this huge, sandworm-like thing had been in Intis just an hour ago. Right? Hard to imagine, isn't it? Celia Jean, dressed in gorgeous attire, looking as if she was about to attend a high society ball, propped her chin up with her hand. Her blue eyes gazed out the window at the countless spirit world creatures that appeared and disappeared from time to time, her tone full of anticipation for the future and for that university. "After becoming a hunter, I thought that there weren't any strange things from those stories in this world, but this experience tells me," she exclaimed, "this world is far more magical than I thought. I'm getting more and more excited. Miskatonic University, what kind of place is it? How many secrets do you think are hidden in the place that created this steam train?" "You are an extraordinary," Archer heard the information revealed in the Intis lady's tone and said cautiously. He felt that the hunter that this lady spoke of was not the hunter that he thought it was. "Yes, I am sequence 9 of the hunter pathway. The potion name is Hunter. What about you?" The flamboyant Intis lady smiled at Archer, who came from a gangster background, and directly asked without any airs of high society. Archer, who had a basic understanding of the world of the supernatural before boarding this train, replied very sincerely, "I have not yet become an extraordinary, but I already have the potion formula and the corresponding main and auxiliary materials. After arriving at that school, I should be able to become an assassin. Assassin, huh? Celia Jean propped her chin up with both hands, her face showing longing. Sounds stronger than hunter. You know, there are really too many hunters in Trier. It's a pity. I always thought that hunter was a very common pathway. If I could, I would also like to take other pathways, not that common kind. Sequence 9, Warrior. The Forsaken Giant, who had been silent for a while, suddenly said in a muffled voice again. The two of them looked over at the giant. His face suddenly turned a little red, and he looked at them awkwardly, as if he had rarely encountered this kind of situation, so he seemed a little at a loss. Peeved. Celia laughed first, and Archer's face, which had stiffened due to shock, also relaxed slightly, giving the tall guy, who looked like a tough guy but had a completely opposite shy and introverted personality, a sincere smile. Sometimes, chatting is an effective way to quickly bridge the distance between strangers, especially since they are now all of the same identity. Apart from the countless colorful and distinct blocks of color outside the window and the various strange creatures that appeared from time to time, the atmosphere inside the train carriage was quite relaxed. Those big monsters were just silently watching them, and they were also curiously looking at those big guys outside, occasionally exclaiming in surprise. There weren't many people in this carriage. Apart from a few solitary passengers sitting not far from them, there was only the train attendant standing by the door connecting the carriages. The train traveled smoothly through the spirit world. During this period, Archer, Celia, and Regulus exchanged some information about themselves and their understanding of Miskatonic University, and also discussed their knowledge of the occult. Archer learned a lot of information that he had not obtained in the gathering he had participated in, such as the 22 pathways, and some strange and mysterious experiences. The reasons why they boarded this train were said to be different, but in fact, they were all similar. After comparing notes, the few of them found that the time they received the notification letter was surprisingly close, and the boarding time was also the same. Being able to freely travel between multiple countries in a short period of time could almost be called a miracle. Therefore, the three of them were filled with unparalleled curiosity about that mysterious university. Just then, the door connecting the carriages suddenly opened. Attracted by the sound, the few of them looked in that direction. They saw another train attendant wearing a military green coat, matching hat, and beige trousers, pushing a man dressed in ordinary clothes, but with golden hair and eyebrows, looking like the sun, with a strange majesty and sacredness, towards the other side of the carriage, seemingly wanting to take this man to the front of the train. You are blaspheming God, Blas, the man, with a strange majesty, was saying something vaguely. Perhaps the struggle was too great, and the carriage also took on a trace of scorching heat, as if something high temperature had entered this carriage. The train attendant behind him said something in a low voice helplessly. Then Archer saw that the train attendant in their carriage, who had been very kind in placing his luggage for him, walked over, raised his hand, and directly pinched the man's mouth with his white-gloved hand. The strange passenger was immediately forced to close his mouth, which had been wailing. Afterwards, the train attendant said something very softly, only they could hear, to this passenger, and then the strange passenger's body stiffened, seeming to be quite shocked by the words in the other party's words. Archer and the other passengers also saw that the enthusiastic train attendant slowly took out a seal from his pocket, released the hand that was grabbing the other party's lips, and directly stamped the seal on the other party's face, just like a quality inspection stamp for examining livestock. On that seal, the word, failed, was written in a strange language that could be understood. That word was as red as blood, appearing on the face of this strange passenger. Archer. Other passengers. The man, whose face was pressed with the stamp, seemed to realize something and froze for a moment. Then, as if he had suffered great humiliation and provocation, he was about to erupt, but a look of astonishment and fear appeared on his face. He couldn't speak, and his extraordinary power. I'm going to hand him over to the conductor. Honestly, impersonation is impolite and not above board at all. I can't believe people from the Eternal Blazing Sun Church would do such a thing. The conductor who brought the man muttered softly to his colleague behind him, then pushed the man forward. Let's go. Let's go. We'll let you off at the next stop. I should suggest to the conductor that we just throw you off here. Archer, Celia, and Regulus exchanged glances as they watched the conductor and the passenger with golden hair and eyebrows head to the next carriage, all feeling puzzled and strange. What was that just now? That passenger just now used someone else's ticket to board the train. The conductor, who had walked over at some point, explained to the three passengers with a smile, "We'll take him to see the conductor and then send him back to where he boarded the train." "Mr. Conductor, how did you know someone was using his identity?" Celia asked curiously. She hadn't noticed any portrait of herself on her ticket. When she boarded, the conductor only glanced at the name and train number on the ticket. In other words, as long as you had the ticket and remembered the name on it, you should be able to get on. "Miss Gien, you all signed your names on the tickets." The conductor was still as gentle as ever. He didn't beat around the bush and explained directly, from a mystical point of view, a name, like blood and hair, is something that, when used for a long time, will create a connection with the creature corresponding to that name. In other words, they use mystical means to confirm whether the person boarding is the real person. They can tell at a glance whether the person who came up is a human or a ghost. Of course, the people of the Eternal Blazing Sun Church wouldn't be stupid enough to come up without doing anything. As for why they let this guy from the Eternal Blazing Sun Inquisition stay up here for so long before catching him, the conductor smiled without saying anything. What if people have the same name? What if I temporarily take a fake name for myself? What would happen? Although Celia had become a hunter, her knowledge of mysticism was not much worse than Archer's or Regulus's. Having such an opportunity, she directly asked the question based on her personality after noticing the other party's goodwill. Although Archer didn't say it explicitly, he also looked at the conductor with curiosity along with Regulus. The expression on the conductor's face remained unchanged, but this time he didn't directly answer the other party's doubts. He just said with a smile, "Regarding these mystical knowledge, when you reach the terminal station, after you enter the school, there will be specialized mystical professors to answer these questions for you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next stop is almost here." Just then, an ethereal voice rang out in the carriage. Loen Kingdom, GNA County, Mike City, arrived. Next stop, Loen Kingdom, GNA County, Donovan. The dense blocks of color outside the window began to fade rapidly, and the night once again dominated the world outside the train window, revealing a row of low houses and a few pedestrians passing by in a hurry. They didn't notice that the speeding steam train was slowly stopping, occupying a large part of this narrow street. The conductor went to help the passengers boarding here. Soon, with a slight tremor, this steam train, which could attract the attention of countless people no matter where or when you looked at it, quietly entered the spirit world with overlapping rich colors again, heading to the next stop. Clingy kitten. Tang shuddered, thinking silently about whether he would be labeled as a pervert by major organizations because of Nicholas Flamel's nasty habit of having the conductor address those impersonators. But he quickly shifted his attention to other things. Eternal Blazing Sun, Lord of Storms, Craftsman, Earth Mother. Even the Moses Ascetic Order has people trying to get on. In the principal's office, Tang sat in the high-backed chair, with cola in his left hand and potato chips in his right, observing the condition of the train traveling in the spirit world through the eyes of the secret puppet. "It seems they care even more than I thought." Tang took a potato chip and was about to put it in his mouth when he suddenly reached out and took out another bag of potato chips. The original potato chips disappeared as the historical gap image reached the maintenance limit. Tearing open the package, Tang reached in and took out new potato chips. Interesting. Crunch crunch crunch. The ancient scholar's potion has been digested. Crunch crunch crunch. When everything is arranged properly, I can be promoted to miracle magician. Zaradul, whose hair appeared somewhat gray and who seemed somewhat old after 300 years, had deep and dark eyes. Having become a miracle magician, he stood by the bed, looking at Tang at this moment and nodding to him. Zaradul, whose ancient scholar potion had been completely digested through Tang's knowledge infusion, had become a true angel in 300 years. The reason why Tang chose to use Zaratul's completely digested potion to be promoted was nothing more than two main reasons. First, the never-ending theater and the gloomy wolf Kotar. One is the bearer of Miskatonic University, and the other plays a huge role in the southern continent, helping to contain the spiritual church and the Rose School. The secret society led by Zaratul has now completely become an affiliate of Miskatonic University, and there is no need for an angel-level secret puppet to sit in town at all times. Moreover, after systematic processing, his separation from the miracle magician's potion does not mean that he has no extraordinary power. Merely falling to sequence 3 does not mean that he has no angel-level power. Borrowing power from his past self, Zaratul, who was once a miracle magician, can obviously burst out with the strength of the same angel level. Second, Zaratul was promoted to miracle magician after becoming his secret puppet. Following the connection of mysticism, the part of the potion that the other party digested is also equivalent to the potion that Tang Eggers Ramde digested. This will maximize the protection against the influence brought about by the initial awakening of the will of the celestial worthy of good fortune when promoting to sequence 2. When the ceremony is completed, waiting for Miskatonic University to truly emerge from history, he will become a new angel, walking on the ground, bringing miracles, the top magician. Final stop. Miskatonic University. We are about to arrive. Passengers, please take care of your luggage, follow the instructions of the train conductor, and disembark in an orderly manner. The world outside the window transitioned from darkness to a world composed of various ink-colored blocks, then departed from that area called the spirit world, repeating this cycle again and again. Archer and the others saw many places they might never visit in their lives. The number of people on the train also increased. Although the seating capacity inside the carriage was only 1/3 full, this number still exceeded Archer's imagination after boarding this train. This situation seemed to prove that the university named Miskatonic had a considerable enrollment scope and number of students. At this moment, the train was traveling across a wasteland. The inky black night sky was dotted with stars, and a scarlet moon stood silently on the horizon, adorning the black velvet curtain. Darkness reigned here. The train sped across the wasteland. Apart from the subtle vibrations of the train itself, no one could know how fast they were rushing forward without looking out the window. And in the distance, there was a region that was out of place with this wasteland. There, countless tall buildings stood, solemn and majestic, emitting a dazzling and bright light in the darkness, even brightening the sky in that area. It was a light they had never seen before, something as dazzling and fiery as the sun. Miskatonic University, the final stop, has arrived. The train slowly entered a pristine and clean station platform. When the train conductor opened the carriage door, Archer and the others got up and stepped out of their carriage. One after another, neatly arranged in well-trained carriages and drivers wearing identical uniforms, which had appeared here at some point, were waiting outside the platform fence, seemingly waiting for them. Disembarking passengers, please proceed according to the signs. Do not crowd, and please pay attention to safety. After stepping out of the carriage and entering this station platform, Archer and the others finally saw the full appearance of the giant monster that had carried them from Intis and Fursak. It was a strangely long machine creation, possessing a certain mighty power within its coldness, a miracle created by the combined efforts of countless craftsmen. Celia Jane, already an extraordinary being, subconsciously examined this steel behemoth. Through a hunter's observation of details, she discovered that it was not only brand new but also did not leave even the slightest scratch. This was obviously abnormal. Everything had wear and tear. Even a well-maintained carriage would show a series of traces such as aging and scratches under a hunter's observation. Extraordinary item. As an Intesian and a believer in the god of craftsmen, Miss Hunter couldn't help but gasp. Extraordinary item? Archer and Regulus looked at Celia again. Regulus, as a Sequence 9 warrior, was also a wild extraordinary being who had accidentally stepped into the extraordinary realm. Although he had become an extraordinary being, his basic knowledge of mysticism was even less than Archer, who had not yet entered the extraordinary realm. As mystically illiterate or semi-literate individuals, it was not shameful for the two of them to ask Celia, who obviously had a better foundation in mysticism, for guidance when facing things they didn't understand. Simply put, it's something created using mystical means that possesses extraordinary power. Celia said, the Craftsman Church, well, the Orthodox churches all possess extraordinary power, but until now, I have never seen such a huge mystical creation. As she spoke, Celia saw the man who was emitting light all over his body, who they had seen on the train being led away by the train conductor. He was surrounded by several different people. Some wore black hoods, some wore linen robes, and some had bulging muscles and looked like they were not to be trifled with, but all of them were now obediently standing next to the steam train, looking like wilted cabbages. Are those the imposter passengers? Archer followed Celia's gaze and saw those strange fellows who looked out of place with the other passengers around them. The train conductor seemed to say that he would let them return to where they boarded, using this train to send them back. Before Archer could voice his thoughts, he saw a gentleman wearing a black silk top hat and a matching formal suit, walking against the crowd towards the train. The gentle and refined gentleman with the silk top hat had a smile on his lips and soft features, making him look very ordinary, but the most impressive thing was the monocle made of crystal that he wore in his right eye socket. He clearly only took one step, but it was like teleportation as described in some novels. He was still a dozen meters away from the train just now, but in the next instant, he appeared next to the train, communicating with the train conductor. And some of those wilted cabbages seemed to tremble uncontrollably when they saw the person who appeared. That is, before Archer could carefully identify him, the gentleman with the silk top hat and monocle looked in his direction. The gentleman pinched his monocle, and Archer, Celia, Regulus, and many other people who were also watching over there subconsciously averted their gazes, not daring to look at him again. Following the crowd, the three of them silently walked out of the platform and boarded the carriage that seemed to have been waiting for a long time outside. Before getting off the train conductor told them that they could enter Miskatonic University after boarding the carriage and that they were not allowed to take unauthorized transportation or walk there. If they did, things would happen that they absolutely could not imagine and absolutely did not want to face. When arriving in a strange place, few people would ignore such a reminder and do something irrational. Archer and the others obediently boarded the carriage and looked at the platform and the various bright things around them from inside the spacious carriage. That was not a candle, but something more efficient and brighter. Everything here made people feel novel. Phew, that was scary. Celia couldn't help but breathe a long sigh of relief. This reminded her of something that some mystical enthusiasts had said in the past: don't look at what you shouldn't look at, don't listen to what you shouldn't listen to. Obviously, the person with the strange glasses seemed to be that kind of existence. Since seeing the steam train and the various things she saw after boarding the train, Celia became more and more excited about her life ahead. The carriages drove side by side, slowly heading towards a place not far from the station. The tall, black iron gate slowly came into view. The massive white building complex alternated with various distinctive low-rise structures, capturing the attention of all the passengers. The gate was heavy and wide, with the seemingly ancient and weighty name, Miskatonic, inscribed above in various languages, including Ancient Futhark, Dragon Language, Giant Language, and Ancient Hermes Language, also capturing everyone's attention. City of Hope, City of Wishes, City of Science, City of Mystery, a city of miracles summarizing countless knowledge and experiences. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Miskatonic University. Standing beneath the clock tower, in front of the floor-to-ceiling window of the president's office, Tang watched countless carriages drive into this university city that had been quiet for many years, placing the book he had barely touched into the system space. The next 3 years will be the most unforgettable 7 years of your 5 years. He pinched the bridge of his nose, then conjured a monocle made of carved crystal from the air. Well then, I should deal with the little bugs that snuck onto the train. Dick Locke, whose face was already stamped with several rejected marks, was a Beyander from the Eternal Blazing Sun Church's Inquisition in Intis. As a Sequence 5 light priest, after his companion swapped his identity with that of a believer who had received a notice and boarded this steam train, this Sequence 5 mid-sequence Beyander realized something was wrong. Originally thinking it was just an incident involving lower-level extraordinary powers, with no important or dangerous sealed artifacts on board, he was directly pulled into the spirit world, severing contact with his teammates. After unsuccessfully trying to leave enough clues in the spirit world for subsequent investigators to follow, and having no choice but to secretly pretend to be the Eternal Blazing Sun believer whose identity had been replaced, he was caught by the train conductor, who seemed like an ordinary person. Then, he saw an old acquaintance, Mortimer Bowers, a Beander from the Artisan Church, also the state religion of Intis, and also a Sequence 5. They were locked in the first carriage, and several others with similar treatment arrived later. Some of these people knew each other, some didn't, but most of them seemed to be Beyonders from the Orthodox God churches. This is bad. Dick Locke's heart sank slightly. He no longer held any expectations for his upcoming encounter or the church's support. This was a supernatural event involving the entire northern continent. Was it a sequence advancement ritual? Or was it related to evil gods, involving those hidden existences that did not belong to Orthodox forces? With too little prior information, he couldn't predict what would happen next. With their extraordinary abilities restricted by some factor, several people who were obviously official Beyonders exchanged glances, having already made a decision. Although they worshipped different gods, they would inevitably stand on the same front in the face of a common threat when necessary. When the train emerged from the spirit world once again, a city that defied description appeared through the windows under the night sky. Their surprise was no less than that of the other passengers. It wasn't until the train conductors led them off the train that these official Beyonders and those from secret organizations saw others besides the train conductors and those who seemed to be bewitched by evil gods. Let me introduce myself, Nicholas Flamel. Nicholas pinched his monocle, looked at these uninvited guests, and said slowly, "Given some of your irrational behaviors, I have the right to suspect that you came here with malicious intent. No need to deny it so quickly, in fact, sometimes your thoughts are really interesting." Upon seeing this old man in a black robe wearing a silk top hat and a monocle that seemed to be carved from crystal in his right eye socket, his figure seemed to tremble. He was afraid, in awe of this man wearing a monocle who claimed to be Nicholas Flamel. "Ah, a seer," Nicholas smiled, glanced at the trembling old man in the black robe, then shifted his gaze before the other party seemed about to collapse to the ground. Dick Locke, from the Eternal Blazing Sun Church's Inquisition, braced himself and said to this man who didn't seem too difficult to communicate with, "Mr. Flamel, we apologize for what we did." "No need to apologize," the young man said easily. But this was an even more dangerous signal. They were afraid that the other party's next words would be something like, "Because dead people don't need to apologize, pay attention next time. Now you can go back. Get on this train, and it will take you back to where you boarded the train." Dick Locke's body tensed, but after understanding the specific meaning of the words the other party said, his pupils dilated, seemingly finding it incredible. The official Beyonders from the Artisan Church and the Storm Church, as well as those from secret organizations, also felt incredible and a strange sense of comicality. "Just let us go like that? You're really not kidding? Just like that? You're sending us back just like that?" "That's what I originally thought," Nicholas said with a smile, seeing these few presumptuous intruders change their expressions again, seemingly quite satisfied with their face-changing performance. Then, this young man wearing a monocle tilted his head, and his somewhat chilling eyes swept over these Beyonders, whose sequences were not considered low, through the monocle. "But because of your impolite presumptuousness, I'm very unhappy now. I'm starting to not want to let you go." Like a weak child without any protection or weapons facing a hungry beast slowly approaching from the forest, this seemingly gentle young man, just standing there at this moment, made all the Beyonders present feel what despair is, what fear born from the heart is. Demigod, divinity. The experienced official Beyonders were horrified. After realizing that they were likely facing a high-sequence Beyonder, and that there were even more high-sequence Beyonders here, their hearts couldn't help but slide into the abyss of despair. "We're dead." That was the only thought in their minds now. However, this young man who seemed ready to start a massacre suddenly tilted his head again. He pinched his monocle and turned his body, as if listening to a certain voice. Then, this young man, who was obviously a demigod, smiled again, revealing a gentle expression. "But I have a bad news and a good news. Which one do you want to hear first?" A piece of good news and a piece of bad news. Before these intruders could say anything, this powerful being, who clearly possessed the rank of a demigod, adjusted his monocle once again. He said in a rather regretful tone, "The bad news is, you won't die. You won't suffer unspeakable harm for trespassing on someone else's territory without the owner's permission. Nor will you be attacked or retaliated against because of your own beliefs, or be captured and interrogated using special methods to extract information about your organization. We also won't probe your souls, even though it's quite simple. We won't steal your thoughts, twist your minds, shatter your faith, or drive you crazy. We certainly won't turn you into marionettes, sending you back to infiltrate your own organization, or allow me to directly parasitize you to obtain more intelligence about your organization. Of course, you can rest assured. Although I prefer the last option, I won't do it. Well, at least not now. After saying all this, Nicholas smiled and continued. See, that's really bad news. It's a real shame for me that I didn't just kill you all. The official Beyonders and Beyonders from secret organizations all fell silent after hearing this long speech. Some people had already begun to give up on themselves, even starting to think that dying directly wasn't such an unacceptable thing. At least it was much better than those processing methods that sounded more terrifying than the last. Then, what's the good news? Dick Locke, a purifier from the Holy Cathedral of Eternal Sun, couldn't help but ask. If this was the bad news, then what would? Oh, we're changing locations. Nicola didn't answer. He raised his hand, as if grabbing at the air. In the next instant, the scene of the neat and clean platform on the edge of the wilderness disappeared. Someone stole the distance between here and another space, instantly teleporting them to another place. The foreign Beyonders found themselves in a familiar yet slightly strange room filled with many books, laid with wooden floors, spacious and elegant, with a huge floor-to-ceiling window. Outside the floor-to-ceiling window was the crimson moon, and below the moon was a huge city shining in the darkness. After spending some time in a place like the steam train that transcended the era, coming to this place that obviously conformed to the style of the current era made several Beyonders feel a little uncomfortable. Nicola sat behind the large long table, leaning back in the high-backed chair, looking leisurely at the several Beyonders in front of him. Contracts composed of various magic patterns and mysterious symbols appeared in the hands of the foreign visitors. Miskatonic University, temporary employment contract. You can choose to sign or not sign. Of course, what I said won't be a problem. You really won't die, and you won't suffer all the harm I just mentioned. Nicola reached out and supported his monocle, his fingers crossed on the table with a smile in his eyes. As for what would happen if they didn't sign, he didn't guarantee any other options besides the above. With that notice, Archer and his companions quickly obtained a set of school rules and a string of dormitory keys from the well-dressed, well-mannered people who greeted them and claimed to be senior students of the university. You are free to move around for the next 2 days, but don't leave the school gate. The world outside the gate is very dangerous. Don't go out without the professor's permission, or you won't be able to come back. Archer looked at the admission notice given to him and found that it contained not only common Loen, Intis, and Fasak languages, but also things written in various strange languages. It's ancient Fasak and Hermes. Celia, from the metropolis of Trier in Intis, explained. These are very common languages in the mystical world. It is said that the Fasak language has a certain connection with the giant language, so the ancient Fasak language itself has a certain extraordinary power. The content written on the admission notice was not difficult to understand, and most of the content was actually warning the outsiders who entered this university. Accurately speaking, are we still considered outsiders now? Celia pondered secretly about what the senior student had said before. It is strictly forbidden to approach the 4th floor of the library, to enter the non-existent 8th floor of the hospital. The observatory does not have a device that can directly see the sun, and it is not allowed to enter the medical building at 12 midnight. They didn't understand many things in the school rules. While reading, the three boarded the carriage that had brought them here before, and followed the others towards a group of beige buildings in the distance. It was surprisingly large here. If they didn't use the carriage, Archer suspected that they might have to walk for 30 or 40 minutes to reach their destination. Student apartments, Building A, Room 401. Men and women seemed to be separated. Celia went to Building B. The university seemed to have assigned 2 people to a room. Coincidentally, he and Regulus, a warrior from Fasak, were in the same room. The dormitory was very clean and bright. As the key was inserted into the lock, the lights in the room naturally turned on. There were many things with more stable light sources in this university, with this gentle light and no strange gas appearing. Although Archer did not understand the structural principle of this thing, it did not affect the weight of the thing called Miskatonic University in his heart. This is the city of miracles. It was already close to 11 o'clock at night. Archer and Regulus, who had been fighting against their spirits and excited all night, felt the fatigue coming from their bodies, but Archer still had one thing to do. He tidied up his suitcase and took out a few things and a transparent cup from the suitcase. "Are you going to become a Beander?" The warrior Regulus looked at the things Archer took out and asked curiously. "Well, in fact, if I hadn't boarded this train, I would have done this tonight." Archer didn't continue to explain the meaning of this sentence. He just started to use pure water and various main and auxiliary materials somewhat unskillfully, according to the potion formula he had obtained from the mystical gathering to prepare the corresponding potion. As the potion took shape, Archer signaled his newly made friend and roommate to take a look at the potion. Regulus looked at it a few times, and said hesitantly in his somewhat buzzing voice, "There shouldn't be any problems." He honestly said, "Before I became a warrior, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a potion formula." Archer. "Ah?" Regulus explained to his roommate the process of becoming a warrior and gaining extraordinary abilities. "At that time, I was so hungry that I couldn't bear it anymore. When I was hunting in the mountains, I killed a bear that looked a bit strange. I ate it. It should be a bear. Then, I fainted for a long time. When I woke up, I found that I had gained extraordinary power. Well, extraordinary power is what I heard from others later. After that, I was sure that I had become a warrior." Regulus communicated with Archer as sincerely as possible, using his somewhat awkward Fursak language. Archer hesitated. Archer was silent. Extraordinary characteristics, can they be taken like this? But never mind. Watching the potion being prepared, Archer picked up the cup. The treatment of extraordinaires and non-extraordinaires seems to be different in this university. This is explained in the manual, that 2 days later, a certain screening will be made based on the prerequisite of whether or not they possess extraordinary power. His premonition told him that this screening would have a profound impact on his life. Therefore, becoming an assassin before that day arrived was a very important decision. "Regulus, if something happens to me, please go find the dormitory administrator." The admission notice also said that if problems occur in the dormitory that they cannot handle themselves, seeking assistance from the dormitory administrator is the best choice. After making up his mind, Archer resolutely drank the potion. Regulus looked at his roommate's painful and ferocious expression caused by the potion's transformation, and was a little flustered. He was also a mysterious novice, so he could only prepare to open the dormitory door at any time, run all the way down, find the dormitory administrator, and seek help. But as time passed, watching his roommate's expression gradually change from painful and ferocious to calm, he quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there were no problems. Archer opened his eyes and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. He stretched out his hand, looked at his body, which seemed stronger than before, and couldn't help but reveal a happy smile. As of now, out of the 2,000 letters of admission sent out, a total of 1,039 passengers have boarded the Spirit World Express. With a calm and solemn temperament, and a dignified and stalwart figure, the sight of him seemed to make people feel goosebumps. The stalwart man stood in front of the office desk, reporting the situation to the young man sitting in the high-backed chair behind the desk, holding a can of cola. After saying what needed to be said, War Bishop Brutus looked at the young man who had already been promoted to ancient scholar. "Drinking too much of this stuff doesn't seem good for your health." Tang wasn't afraid of this strong man at the same level at all, who looked very capable of fighting. "It's just an image from the historical gap. As long as the time comes, it will disappear on its own. This kind of thing will only bring me joy. After all, I'm already sequence 3. I need to stabilize my mental state and prevent loss of control, right?" He held the cola with a straw, put ice cubes in it, and said while biting the straw, "Speaking of which, do you have any news about the extraordinary characteristics of Weather Warlock and Conqueror? It's been so long, and Zaratul has already advanced to sequence 2. As the earliest secret puppet, and one of the spoils of the theater, War Bishop Brutus's secret puppet would have been quite impressive at Sequence 3 before. But now Tang even has an Angel King of Sequence 1 under his command, so it doesn't seem impressive enough. Let Nikolai go to the Augustus family, or the Witch Sect, and steal the Conqueror characteristics from Intis Trier, or directly visit the God of Wisdom and Knowledge. There, 001, seems to be the uniqueness of the Red Priest pathway. Directly try to make a deal with the God of Wisdom and Knowledge? Tang has a good understanding of the three Sequence ones and the uniqueness based on the current intelligence network. The Augustus and Intis families, and the God of Wisdom and Knowledge are hard to say, but bullying the Witch family is not a problem. The only fear is that the Conqueror is in the hands of the Primordial Witch, not within the Witch family. If that's the case, then he would have to consider whether he should give the Primordial Witch a surprise attack. There is already news about the Weather Warlock's extraordinary characteristics, and we can try to advance in half a year at the latest, said the War Bishop. Afterwards, he hesitated for a moment and asked, "Are you planning to let me become a Red Priest? Among all the people, aren't you the only one who has reached Sequence 3 on the Hunter pathway?" Tang spread his hands. Before the end of the world comes, cultivating as many high-level beings as possible is also part of my plan. Anyway, his Hunter pathway and the Witch pathway don't conflict. As long as the refinement and grade of the Bionic Secret Puppet module are enough to support a true god, what reason does he have to object to the birth of a Red Priest? Please, that's a true god. Isn't it comfortable to have such a true god-level secret puppet backing you up? Anyway, before the goddess of the night ascends above the sequences, before she might become the fourth, the city of calamity and the river of eternal darkness will definitely not meet. When you advance to Red Priest, go and eat chick, and when Klein becomes Lord of the Mysteries, open the seal of the Western Continent, and get the city of calamity beautifully. At that time, I will have two great old ones backing me. Tang shared his vision of the future with his secret puppet, and incidentally revealed a look of mixed eating and waiting for death, taking a big sip of happy fatty water. Ah, so comfortable. War Bishop, it's okay, I'm used to it. The War Bishop shifted his gaze and asked, what are you going to do with those outsiders? As the price for following others home without permission, isn't it a very interesting thing to keep these people who obviously have official intelligence and means in the school? Tang went to dig through the historical gap image again, and took out a tray of freshly baked hot dog buns from it. Since he himself became an ancient scholar, the behavior of using yesterday once more charms to satisfy his appetite can be directly routine. There is no need to consider calories, nor to worry about waiting time, nor to worry about whether the taste will not meet his expectations. Ancient Scholar is really the most suitable sequence for a transmigrator from a great food empire. Would you like some? The taste is quite good. Tang chuckled softly, mocking himself. Although I don't belong to this time and space, being able to use the power of the Ancient Scholar to directly pull out historical gap images from my never-appearing past is also derived from my own uniqueness. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.